Chapter 670. This chapter is dedicated to the leader, Ink Horizon, 1 chapter for the time being, and 5 chapters in the future. Liszt had many doubts about Alonso's slowness, and the 2 Sky Knights, Garcia and Fox, were even more embarrassed. It was really embarrassing and disappointing that the Lord did not care about his followers. Moreover, the investigation news from the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom had been passed to Tulip Castle. When Liszt took people to capture trapped Dragon Mountain, Alonso Cyclamen was in the northern border of the Eagle Kingdom, confronting the Dragon Knight of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, but there was no direct battle. About a week after trapped Dragon Mountain was occupied, Alonso once again appeared on the battlefield. It was about a month ago. That is to say, Alonso may not have returned to Battering River Plain. Father thinks so too. It is possible that the news of the iron mine in trapped Dragon Mountain was not spread at all, so Alonso did not know about it and did not make any movements. The one who answered was Levis. He had personally sent the news and asked Liszt some questions about cultivation. Levis was 6 years older than Liszt. He was 24 years old this year and was only 1 step away from becoming a Sky Knight. With Liszt's Earth Codex as a cultivation material, his progress to become a Sky Knight was relatively smooth, and he should be able to become a Sky Knight next year. The scene of 3 skies was about to become a reality. Forget it, regardless of whether Alonso pays the ransom or not. Brother, when will the family's fleet return? It should be soon. After the iron ore is delivered, it will be sent directly to help you buy serfs and food. We also rent about half of the fleet from my grandfather's family, and 1/3 of the fleet from my father-in-law's family. A total of 800 merchant ships for serf trade, and 1 trip is enough for your needs. Liszt's military merits were too generous this time, so he spent a lot of money to buy 10,000 tons of food and 40,000 serfs. As long as the food was enough, he had unlimited demand for serfs. After all, after the founding of the country, it was not easy to obtain a large number of serfs. The serfs of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire were obtained through trade. Many serfs came from either the Eagle Kingdom or the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. It was only after a few generations overseas that they were completely labeled as Sapphire. He had to stock up enough people for his future country. Not only did he have to hoard the population, but the Tulip family also had to do the same. The Count was about to be promoted to the ox-tailed Marquis, and the size of his fief had expanded by more than 10 times. How could he develop it without serfs? Fortunately, there were still a large number of serfs farming in the oxtail Marquis fief. When the time came, he would be able to obtain these serfs as long as he paid gold coins to the Grand Duke. He took a sip of tea. Liszt sighed with emotion. I hope the fleet will arrive soon. There are more and more territorial sprites, but there aren't enough serfs to farm. Cough, cough, Levis was pretending to taste tea. Recently, many aristocrats of the Coral Island began to learn how to taste tea, which was gradually becoming popular. When he heard Liszt's words, he choked on the tea and almost fainted. It took a lot of effort to suppress the sound of choking. Liszt asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Levis hurriedly waved his hand. "It's nothing, I just don't like the bitter taste of tea. I like sweets, desserts, and all sweet things. I thought you had already accepted tea. If I had known earlier, I would have had the servants bring you milk tea. Now that everyone has started to drink tea, I would seem a bit out of place if I don't drink tea." Levis had no intention of talking about this topic. By the way, before I set off, my father asked me to ask you when you can sort out the Sky manuscript. He is about to go to the Blue Dragon Island to accept the title promotion ceremony. He hopes to bring the manuscript with him to the Blue Dragon Island. Previously, Liszt wrote the Liszt's Earth manuscript, which became a family heirloom of the Tulip family. After that, when he chatted with the Count, he said that he had reached the peak of Qi and intended to write a book called Liszt's Handbook of the Sky, to record the scientific training method of the Sky Knight. Even though his own training process of the Sky Knight was not scientific and relied on the dragon to cheat, this did not prevent him from summarizing the Qi perfection method. He had promised to give the List Sky manuscript to the Count for reference and help the Count reach the level of Sky Knight. Unfortunately. At this time, he shook his head. I have been busy recently, so I haven't continued writing the Sky manuscript. Tell my father not to worry. After he becomes a marquis and returns, I will probably be able to finish the manuscript. With so many books to write, there was no time to write. He felt a little sorry for the Count's ardent expectations. He then added, however, I saw that the bloodline of father's horse wasn't good enough, so I decided to give father a black-blooded horse from the fine stallions I raised. When you go back, bring the black-blooded horse to father. Today, the black-blooded horse no longer needed to be strictly protected as a secret. He only needed to ensure that the bloodline of the black-blood horse would not be spread out, just like the Sapphire family strictly guarded the bloodline of the blue-blood horse. The Count was well aware of List's identity. He would not use this black-blood horse for breeding. He would only use it to pay attention to ostentation. After all, his World of Warcraft breed leopard horse was too shabby. Black-blood horse, are you referring to those extraordinary dark horses? Levis's eyes lit up. List, my dear brother, can you also give me one? List smiled slightly. Levis suddenly showed a bright smile. The next moment, List said, no. The black-blood horse is used to breed horses. You don't have to think about it for the time being. When the horse herd grows in the future, I will give you a few if you want. Okay. Levis could only accept it helplessly. Now, once List made a decision, it was like an iron law, and no one could oppose it. Looking at his brother Levis's fake expression, List directly ignored it. By the way, how is the effect of the calming bead I gave you as a birthday gift? After the expansion order returned, he directly sent 3 calming beads to the Count, Levis, and his grandmother. Very good. It's not hot during the day and not cold at night. We no longer have to worry about Richard freezing at night. That's good. It's getting late. Are you going to stay here for the night? I have to go back directly. Then hurry back with the black-blood horse, or you won't get to Tulip Castle before dark. He didn't have much in common with Levis, so List simply urged him to go back. I also have some urgent matters to deal with here in the territory, so I won't accompany you for an urgent chat. Just a moment ago, Steward Carter had reported to him that the cows in the Banpo cattle farm had begun to give birth. The calves that were given birth were not ordinary calves, but Banpo cows, real dragon breeds. The hybrid piglets bred with estuarine pigs were already ready to be served on the dining table, but Banpo cows would have to wait a year or 2 before they could produce real dragon milk. Black blood horse, estuarine pigs, and Banpo cows. Chapter 671. This chapter is the Spirit Gem Reward. Although he said he was inspecting the Banpo cattle farm, in fact, there was nothing to inspect. The cows that gave birth to calves were very healthy, and so were the calves. List personally fed the cows a few bundles of hay as a consolation. Then he sent people to the estuary pig farm to slaughter a hybrid estuary pig. He wanted to eat a roast suckling pig at dinner. Standing on the hillside of the Black Horse Ranch, List looked at the black-blooded horses in the distance, with Lightning nestling beside him. He rarely rode this king of black-blooded horses. Most of the time, Lightning was leisurely being the king of horses, mating with any horse it wanted. The horses had given birth to many foals. With the herdsman taking care of these foals, none of them died, and the herd was slowly expanding. Even larger was the hybrid horse herd. The foals landed one after another, and there were already hundreds of them. When these foals grew up, they could arm the Black Horse Island orders of chivalry. Although their dragon blood was thin, they could still be called dragon horses, which were stronger than the World of Warcraft horses. Unfortunately, the invisible dragon only visits my territory about once a year. Otherwise, if it visited a few more times, there would probably be no shortage of dragon beasts in my territory. The reason why a dragon could infect dragon creatures was because of the magic in its blood. According to the Marquis Bull's Dragon Raising Handbook, the magic in its blood may originate from the boiling of blood. When a dragon was extremely excited, its blood would boil quickly, releasing the magic in its blood, thus infecting the surrounding creatures and forming a dragon creature. However, it was very difficult to make a dragon excited and reach a state similar to an orgasm in both body and mind. The invisible dragon's excitement was the smoke grass. A big meal of smoke grass could make it so excited that it couldn't control itself, thus releasing the magic in its blood to infect the Banpo cattle and estuary pigs. It could also produce some space gems. So far, List had obtained 4 space gems from the invisible dragon. However, perhaps the invisible dragon was still young, or perhaps it knew how to control itself. It only came once a year. Even with the smoke grass, it only came twice in total. If it frequented the place, not to mention dragon beasts, even space gems could be sold wholesale. Of course. He speculated in his List's Dragon Taming Handbook that the magic of the dragon's bloodline infection could not be released at any time. It needed a long time to condense. That was why dragons did not get excited often. Once a year was probably a more normal frequency. Too much excitement might harm their bodies. Moreover, if it wasn't the most exciting part, the dragon might not even get excited once in his life. After List rode the dragon, he also tried to understand Leo's excitement through spiritual unity. However, Helio didn't understand this. Whether it was smoked grass, grilled steak, or thrown into the crater of a volcano, they could make him happy and make him laugh, but they couldn't make him excited. That was not what it was excited about. That was why even though Leo had been born for so long, he had never released the power of infection from his bloodline. As for how to make it excited, perhaps it would take a long time to figure it out. For reference, the Sapphire family, apart from the blue blood horse, they had never heard of any dragon species being bred. It could be speculated that after more than 150 years of exploration, the Sapphire family still hadn't mastered the excitement of the sapphire dragon. As for the dragon beast, it was even rarer. In the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, apart from List who had 2 low-level dragons, chocobos have evolved. He didn't know if there was anyone else who had another dragon beast. As for the more advanced dragon, super dragon species in World of Warcraft, there was no evidence to prove whether they really existed or not, except for the phoenix feather. I don't know if it is possible to simulate the excitement of the dragon through artificial means, so that the dragon is excited and releases the power of infection from its bloodline. Maybe this can also be regarded as a training method. Let's just call it dragon blood infection, hee. List thought in boredom. Although he knew that this was not a real training method, he still called out the smoke mission. Sure enough, the smoke mission did not change. It still maintained the previously issued mission, to explore the next training method in a low-key manner. I hope Archer can verify the resonance theory as soon as possible. Leaving the Black Horse Ranch, List rode Lightning to the construction site of Thorn Castle. The foundation of the castle had been poured, and the first layer had begun to be laid. With rubber water as the solidifying material, the construction was effortless, but the hard work was the polishing of the details. The chief construction director, Jormea Rammed Earth, knew for whom he was building the castle. He personally participated in every step and made sure that the quality reached the highest standards. In fact, List wanted him to cut corners. After all, he didn't know who to sell Thorn Castle to in a few years. But in the end, he didn't say anything. In any case, this castle would be his home for the next few years. Even if he left Sapphire to build a country overseas in the future, this castle would still be the best place to see him. The Apple Sprite's worm stalk had been placed in the planned apple paradise. Now many serfs were planting the autumn saplings, and in 2 years, the apple paradise would be lush. Thomas, have someone catch a few fresh fish from the well and give them to the kitchen. I want to have fish soup for dinner. List ordered. Yes, master. Also, tell the kitchen to mix the mallard eggs and the flamingo eggs to make a plate of chicken fur. The chicken fur was a kind of abandoned worm stalk. Since the flame mushroom trade, the production of the chicken fur had been rising steadily, and its growth was the most prosperous. The valet Thomas responded, "Yes, master." The mallard was a water element in World of Warcraft, the flamingo was a fire element in World of Warcraft, and the earth element chicken fur was a special taste when fried. After ordering the dinner, there was still some time before the banquet started. He thought about it and prepared to go to the wizard tower to see how the magic plants were being cultivated. Unexpectedly, when he passed by the night square, Alvin Eagle's word came over excitedly, "My lord." "What's the matter?" "I have thoroughly studied the ice seal skill of the dragon-slaying sword." List was delighted. The dragon-slaying sword spent most of its time studying the skill in Alvin's hands. "Is that so? Come, tell me in detail." As the only Iron Knight in the territory, Alvin had his own office, workshop, and house in the Knight Academy. He was also someone who couldn't bear the loneliness. He had already hooked up with a young lady and set a date for marriage, preparing to start a family. Of course, List was happy to see this happen. With the dragon-slaying sword in hand, he patiently listened to Alvin's continuous explanation. "My lord, you have already familiarized yourself with the ice twist skill. You can convert fire element chi into ice element chi at will. This is the prerequisite for the ice seal skill. Next, you only need to use the chi circulation frequency to activate the ice seal skill. The dragon-slaying sword can increase the frequency of chi circulation, thus blocking the chi resonance of the chi domain." It seemed complicated, but the principle was not. The chi domain was a method of chi resonance. It might require delicate and complicated operation, but the principle was still the chi resonance to form the domain. The ice seal skill of the ice soul dragon-slaying sword also had a set of complicated operating methods. However, the principle behind it was to rely on the frequency of the battle chi release to clash with the battle chi domain, and then use the ice battle chi to interfere with the resonance to achieve the effect of ice seal. With Alvin's guidance, List quickly grasped the method to use the ice seal skill. With the sword in hand, he circulated his chi. Soon, the crystal-clear blue sword let out a buzzing sound. Circles of bone-chilling chi spread from the blade, quickly sweeping through the surrounding space like waves. The movement was a little big, and it did cause the surrounding air to drop by several degrees. But the effect was unknown. There was no domain knight here to test his sword. So after using the ice seal skill a few times, he put away the dragon-slaying sword and thought to himself, "Sooner or later, I will have to participate in the expansion order. When the time comes to snatch Marquis Wildtail's chi domain, I can use him to test my sword." Chapter 672. The Ice Soul Dragon-slaying sword was thoroughly studied, and List could hang it on his waist every day, but it was a bit awkward to have a blade without a scabbard. So the next task of Alvin Eagle's sword was to make a scabbard for the Ice Soul Dragon-slaying sword. While playing with the Ice Soul Dragon-slaying sword, List suddenly thought of the huge harpoon he brought back from the Temple of Fish Clown. The necro-ugly fish in it had not been studied yet. He immediately left the Knight Academy, found an open area by the sea, and took the harpoon out of the gem space. The 5-meter-long harpoon was directly inserted into the sand by the sea. Then List took out the soul storage jar and poured down the mouth of the teapot. Suddenly, a glowing smoke was poured out, and then the smoke formed the figure of a 36D girl. It was Virginia Truth, Curtis Truth's younger sister. "Ah, I'm out again. Viscount List feels that we haven't seen each other for a long time." Virginia was used to living in the soul state. List smiled and said, "It's been a long time." As his strength grew, there were more and more mages in the territory, and his scientific research strength rose day by day. Virginia, who was just an ordinary mage, could play a less and less role, so he didn't bother to let her out often. He even planned to give her to a Chi for research along with the soul storage jar. The purpose of summoning her today was to let her take a look at how to summon the necro-ugly fish out of the harpoon and make it a weapon to protect himself. He didn't care about the poor combat power of the necro-ugly fish, but the necro-ugly fish could still release advanced magic, which belonged to the level of a great mage. If it was fixed on his flagship, the Sunset, it would also have a good combat power to accompany and protect him when sailing the sea. If they encountered sea monsters or pirates, it might be very useful if they caught them off guard. Virginia, you are used to the soul state, so can you sense that there is also a powerful soul hidden in this harpoon? Virginia floated towards the harpoon, and her soul body passed through it. Then she said in surprise, I feel a cold aura of death, but the soul power contained in the aura is very weak. Viscount List, can you tell me where this harpoon came from? From the ancient ruins, the Fish Clown Holy Temple. This harpoon hid a necro-fish clown. It guarded the Fish Clown Holy Temple, but I killed it. I feel that it's hiding in the harpoon, so I want to release it and see if I can control it to protect the ship. Is the undead fish ugly? Maybe I can activate it. Thank you. Are you sure you want to activate it here? It might still attack you. Don't be nervous. If I can destroy it once, I can destroy it twice. List smiled faintly. Although it wasn't him who killed it last time, it was a piece of cake for him to kill a spiritual fish clown on land. Virginia did not say anything else. The soul body directly touched the harpoon, and the next moment, the harpoon also glowed with the same light. Then, a green distorted shadow was projected from the harpoon, and then it turned into a 10-meter-tall undead fish clown. However, compared to the ferocious first time, the undead fish clown this time was obviously dull. This, is it not used to the land environment? Probably not. Virginia floated beside the undead fish clown like a little dot. Viscount List, I feel that when you first killed it, you severely damaged its soul, causing it to lose its basic consciousness. So, this undead fish clown is useless? Yes. It's a pity that such a huge harpoon was wasted. Probably no one can use it anymore. List shook his head slightly and said, Virginia, I'm going to attend the banquet now. You go back to the soul storage tank first. I'll chat with you again when I have time. However, Virginia did not move. Instead, she seemed to be hesitant to speak. List frowned and looked at her. She finally seemed to have made a decision. Viscount List, if you want to control the undead fish clown and this harpoon, maybe I can help. What help? I can use my soul to replace the soul of the undead fish clown. In this undead fish clown's soul shadow, only the core is the soul, and the outside is some kind of power that I don't know. As long as I replace the core soul, I can control the entire undead fish clown. List was a little surprised, but then he said, if I'm not wrong, undead is different from souls. The undead includes the power of its life and is transformed into a soul state, but its soul itself is not strong. As you can see, the undead fish clown's soul has been killed, but its power still exists. I see. So, are you really willing to replace the soul of the undead fish clown and become such an ugly undead monster? Virginia nodded seriously. Compared to staying in the soul storage tank and not knowing the passage of time, I prefer to be free. The undead fish clown is indeed very ugly, but for me in soul form, ugly and beautiful have no meaning at all. Viscount List, let me replace the undead fish clown and become a guardian. The soul of a 36D girl was about to become the soul of a 10-meter-tall undead fish clown. The change of style might be a little sudden, but List had no reason to stop this. Instead of letting her be confined in the soul storage tank, it was better to let her have limited freedom in the form of the undead fish clown. Then, I agree. Thank you very much for your generosity, Viscount List. Virginia bowed solemnly, and then her body resolutely flew toward the tall, stupid undead fish clown. She crashed into the green light, quickly found the broken soul, and quickly merged with it. In the next second, the undead fish clown's body trembled. Then, the light seemed to change slightly. The originally ugly and ferocious undead fish clown's face changed slightly, and there was a trace of expression similar to Virginia's. Another 15 minutes of silence. The undead fish clown slowly spoke, "List." Intuition, the pronunciation was unclear, and List couldn't hear it at all. However, the undead fish clown slightly adjusted, and when it spoke again, it was clearer. "Viscount List, I have replaced the undead fish clown. How do you feel?" "Not bad. Compared to my previous state, there are some tangible feelings that I haven't felt for a long time." As she spoke, she reached out and grabbed the harpoon stuck in the ground. "I merged with the broken memory of the undead fish clown. I feel that most of it is blank, and only a few spells are left." Hearing this, List was interested. "How is it different from the spells that humans release?" "There are some differences, but the general principle is the same, especially since these spells seem to be high-level spells. I've never experienced such a way of casting spells. No, I need some time to get used to it before I can release these spells." Virginia was just an ordinary mage when she was alive. She had never experienced a dynamic magic array, and she couldn't release advanced spells. "You have enough time to get used to it and record the casting plan. However, can you always exist in this state?" "I don't think so. My soul is weakening, and I probably won't be able to support the body of the undead fish clown in half an hour. However, I can enter the harpoon and replenish my soul power. When I have enough, I can come out again. By the way, Viscount List, this harpoon is called Shredder Staff." Chapter 673. The Shredder Staff was put into the gem space. Interestingly, Virginia could still restore her soul power in the Shredder Staff, as if she would not be restricted by the stillness of the gem space. This made List feel that the stillness of the gem space was probably the stillness of everything on the material plane. It did not work on the non-material plane, or the spiritual plane. As soon as a living thing entered the gem space, its soul would inevitably dissipate, and there was probably no suitable carrier that could carry it. Once there was a carrier like the soul storage jar and the Shredder Staff, it could survive. Perhaps on the day he rode the invisible dragon, he would be able to thoroughly understand the magic of the invisible dragon. Dinner. Enjoying the delicious roast suckling pig, the purebred estuarine pig could not be tasted. At present it was only a hybrid estuarine pig, but the taste was several times better than that of ordinary pigs. The taste was delicate and mellow, and the sauce flavor of simple seasoning was matched with the meat of the estuarine suckling pig. Just smelling it would make one salivate, let alone eating it. At the same time, it was accompanied by fish soup from the well, 2 kinds of scrambled eggs from the mallard duck and the flamingo, plus other rich ingredients, which really made List's appetite. The value of the food eaten in one meal was probably higher than the consumption of ordinary civilians for a year or two. This was the luxury of being an aristocrat. The stronger the knight, the more food he needed every day. After all, the chi came from the knight himself, not from the free magic or the magic network. However, compared to other aristocratic lords who rely on exploiting civilians to survive, List mainly relies on business and development orders. The glass business has become popular throughout Sapphire and has spread to the Steel Ridge Kingdom. Flour, wine and soap have also gradually expanded their sales range and are making money every day. When the future paper white is qualified, it will definitely set off a new sales climax. At that time, he is afraid that relying on glass and white paper will make him rich. As a dragon knight, he has enough strength to ensure a technical monopoly. As a monopoly business, it is natural to make huge profits. This kind of life is not in vain. After the dinner, enjoying several kinds of pastries made with banpo milk as desserts, List felt proud in his heart. Everyone has their own ambitions. Some people like to set off revolutions and unite the world. However, he didn't have such noble aspirations. Being able to protect the happiness of his subjects and then enjoy life and explore the world was his greatest pleasure. My previous small goal of riding a dragon has been achieved. Now, I will set another small goal, to build a nation within 10 years and become a truly independent lord. He had a goal. He felt even more motivated and a better life beckoning him. As for my long-term goal, I want to form a contract with a fairy dragon, become the lord of the dragon domain, and share its lifespan. I'm not asking for much. I just want to live for a few hundred or 1,000 years and I'll be completely satisfied. In the past, he felt that 100 years was enough for him to live, so there was no need to seek longevity. But now, he didn't think so. Enjoying such a beautiful life for only 100 years was too little. He didn't want to wait for a Qi to become an adult only to have wrinkles on his forehead. The next day, Liszt continued his seclusion, studying and training with a Qi. When a Qi was verifying the resonance principle of the magic net, there were a few unsolvable problems that she needed help with, so Liszt asked her to write them out. Then, he hurried to the mage tower with the problems and looked for crazy truth to solve them. 4 great wizards, 8 vampires, and several ordinary wizards were already a very luxurious lineup. No matter how smart a Qi was, her knowledge was still too little, and she had almost no contact with humans. It was all through the magic books that Liszt found her to understand the magic world. Naturally, in many aspects, she couldn't compare to the human wizards who traveled around. Crazy took the thick bast paper notebook and said, "Lord Viscount, I will arrange for the great wizards to lead the team to tackle these problems together." "Very good, solve these problems as soon as possible. I urgently need answers." Liszt simply stayed in the mage tower and waited for the wizards to solve the problem. But what she didn't expect was that when Chris took the question to the 3 great magicians, they all replied, "Sorry, we don't have time." This was not the attitude that a captive should have. Liszt immediately asked, "Crazy, what are they busy with?" "Recently, they have been addicted to nature magic and can't extricate themselves. They spend all day around those magical plants, and even discussed with Mary about collaborating on druid transformation magic," Crazy said helplessly. Once a wizard was addicted to a certain kind of research, their stubbornness was quite terrifying. Liszt found the 3 great wizards and said seriously, "I don't care how much you like nature magic. Now, solve these problems for me. If you solve them, you can continue to study nature magic. If you can't solve them, all the magical plants and materials will be confiscated. Lord Viscount, our research is of epoch-making significance. You shouldn't look down on nature magic like this. Yes, once we study the secret of the growth of magical plants, the world will no longer lack food. This is research with great strategic value, you should support our research. Druid transformation magic is also a powerful fighting force. It can even overcome the disadvantage of wizards not being able to go to the battlefield." Liszt was expressionless. "Solve my problem first, then study nature magic. For the truth, we refuse. As long as the truth is not explained, we will not work for you for a moment. You can detain our bodies, but you can't detain our hearts that yearn for the truth." The 3 great wizards seemed to have a brain cramp. No matter how Liszt threatened them, they would not budge, unless Liszt used force. However, he was not a person who advocated violence. He believed in his own charisma. "If I say that there is a descendant of the sun's child in my territory, will you be willing to solve these problems for me?" "Huh? A descendant of the sun's child? A true caster of druid transformation magic?" The 3 great wizards immediately put away their rascals and said excitedly, "Lord Viscount, please tell us where the descendant of the sun's child is. You must understand that he is more important than anything in your territory." Liszt looked at Crazy, and then turned to the 3 great wizards. "Solve the problem, and I will bring him here to cooperate with your research. Let me say this in advance, everything is voluntary. You are not allowed to force the other party, and you are not allowed to do any inhumane abuse. After all, old Phil was old and could not afford to be tossed around. It was possible to draw blood and so on, but it was obviously not suitable to be a guinea pig. Although the Lord had the power to kill and take away the lives of his subjects, List's morality did not allow him to hurt ordinary people who lived a normal life. After saying these words, he turned and left. Chapter 674. In order to get Phil, the descendant of the sun, the three great wizards had to work hard to study the problems raised by a Chi. Crazy coordinated the overall situation. The magic research team still played a very important role. Even if a Chi was promoted to a magic shooter in the future, she still needed a group of wizards to help her complete various detailed experiments. For the next 3 days, List did not have much to do except practice. He just contracted the peanut sprite, plus the oat sprite he contracted a few days ago. He currently had 64 sprite worms. I always feel that the number of sprite worms in the territory can't keep up with the pace of my expansion. There is no longer the speed of a sprite worm being born every few days. Could it be that the power of the smoke dragon's fate is too involved in the matter of riding the dragon, causing its influence to weaken? In fact, the birth rate of sprite worms on Black Horse Island was not slow at all. Most of the plants were planted in the first or second batch and may not have adapted to the local soil. However, List felt that it was slow. He felt that if he did not pick up a sprite worm a day, he would feel uncomfortable. It can be seen that it was easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. However, although he did not pick up many sprite worms, he did pick up a lot of pearls. In the sea near Stony Island, he pried open a few golden lip clams and found 4 good golden pearls. In the pearl lake of the Ringed Reef, he accidentally encountered a few black giant clams swimming from the deep sea. After preeing them open, he got a batch of satisfactory black pearls. Because he wanted to eat pink conch, he killed 2 of them. He did not expect to get a pink pearl. Golden pearls and pink pearls were very scarce, so he kept them all for his own use. The big black pearls were also kept, and the small ones were given to Luolia, who would sell them on his behalf. The profit was split 30 to 70. This time, Luolia took 30% and List took 70%. It was not List who proposed more, but Luolia who took the initiative. For this, List appreciated it very much. Compared to the greedy Levis, Luolia knew how to choose. Although the profits from the black pearls were no longer in his eyes, this move still made him feel comfortable because it meant that the other party respected his strength. What was the point of painstakingly cultivating to become a dragon knight? Wasn't it all for status and power? Levis married a good wife. Although his talent is SOSO and he is still an elite Earth Knight, he can be considered a winner in life. His father is about to become a marquis and will inherit the title sooner or later. His wife is of noble birth and is sensible. His son is healthy and cute. Most importantly, his brother is a dragon knight. October 11th. It was drizzling from the sky. Since the morning, Black Horse Harbor suddenly became lively. Countless ships were waiting to dock and enter the port, but the port was small and difficult to handle. Gort and other officials had to organize a group of ships and sail to another new port on Black Horse Island. These ships were used by the Tulip family to transport serfs and grain, and there were more than 500 of them. 200 of them were slave-transporting boats. Each boat carried 200 serfs, for a total of 40,000 serfs. In this way, the number of people in the Black Horse Island territory will exceed the 100,000 mark. The other 300 were grain-transporting boats. Each boat carried 50 tons of grain, for a total of 15,000 tons of grain. These grains, combined with the production of the territory and the food purchased from nearby islands, were enough to maintain the normal rations of Black Horse Island for a year. List's flagship, the Sunset, also returned. After several voyages, this sewn and patched sky ship did not show any signs of damage. The rubber water combined with rock wood and thorny ironwood had a very good repair effect. However, after docking, the Sunset was immediately sent to the shipyard for a new round of repairs and remodeling. One was to renovate the cabin and equip it with some comfortable cabins for List's entourage to live in. The other was to equip the shredder staff. In the future, she would be incarnated as the ugly necromancer, Virginia Truth. She would use the Sunset as her new home, braving the wind and waves and escorting the voyage. List no longer put the shredder staff into the gem space, giving Virginia the freedom she wanted. Another thing was that the Sunset needed a new paint job. As the flagship of the Dragon Knight, it must be low-key and luxurious. "Sir Viscount, I feel like I can do more things." Standing on the beach, the ugly necromancer, Virginia, looked at her illusory hands. "There is a big difference between the undead and the soul. I just need to concentrate my mind and let my hands touch the real thing," she said, grabbing a boulder on the beach that was estimated to weigh a ton. The ugly necromancer was very powerful when he was alive. "A few tons of objects can't stop me." List saw such a situation, and his eyes suddenly lit up. There is no doubt that the ugly necromancer, who can grasp the real thing, is equivalent to a giant laborer. It can do heavy work that humans can't do. Indeed, you can do a lot of things now. The most important thing is that the ugly necromancer can move freely in the sea. "Virginia, the depth of the Black Horse Harbor and the new harbor are too shallow. I wonder if you can help me remove the gravel and silt from the seabed and dredge the depth of the harbor?" "I'm at your service, Sir Viscount." Virginia had a peaceful temperament. After being free, she was very grateful to List. She had changed from the initial Viscount List to Sir Viscount. The difference in address represented a different attitude. She considered herself as a subordinate. The more List looked at the ugly necromancer, the more satisfied he was. But then he sighed. "Unfortunately, you can only control the ugly necromancer for half an hour. You can only come out for half an hour after resting for a day. This severely limits the effect of the ugly necromancer's body." Virginia's eyes also dimmed for a while. But she quickly recovered. "It is already a great happiness to see the light for half an hour every day." List was infected by her optimism and smiled. "I will organize the mages of the territory to study how to extend the existence of the undead. Maybe one day you can have half of the time to move freely, and the other half of the time to go back to sleep in the tearing staff." Virginia said happily, "Thank you, Sir Viscount." "You're welcome." List waved his hand, looking insignificant. In fact, the purpose of his proposal was to thank Virginia for sorting out the magic casting plan of the ugly necromancer 2 days ago. Secondly, the longer the ugly necromancer existed, the longer it could work. It was not easy to find a 10-meter-tall huge laborer, especially one in the water. Maybe with the power of the ugly necromancer, he could build a castle in the water. The temple of the ugly fish was obviously built by the ugly necromancer. So, in the next few days, the dockworkers and sailors working in the Black Horse port often saw turbid bubbles in the port for half an hour. Silt also rolled in, dyeing most of the port yellow. Some officials warned them in advance, so they were not too shocked. But there were still a few slogans like, "Praise the Lord," and "This is the place blessed by the night's glory." The movement was undoubtedly caused by Virginia's work in the water of the port. She dug away the gravel and silt and dug the port into a deep water port. The water depth was at least 10 meters, and any kind of large ship could freely enter and exit. And the width of the port was constantly expanding, and the number of ships that could be docked at the same time was constantly increasing. Chapter 675. This chapter is, from today onwards. Unfortunately, the clownfish race had declined for some unknown reason, probably at the same time as the Moon Empire. Magicians also declined from that era. The reason for the decline was unknown. According to the subsequent rise of the night, List was one of the beneficiaries. If it was still the era of the Moon Empire's magicians, List would not be so free even if he became a dragon knight. Suppressing the destiny of a country. As soon as the Black Horse Harbor was cleaned up, List received new good news. Under the overall command of Crazy, the mages of the Magic Academy successfully solved a cheese problem. It was said to be a problem, but in fact, it was difficult for a chi, a theoretical mage with knowledge but no practice. The three great sorcerers were very experienced. They quickly gave constructive suggestions and solved the problem in one go. List quickly sent the answers to the problems back to the seaside castle in Flower Town and handed them to a chi. A chi, these problems have been solved. How long will it take to complete the verification of the resonance theory? Brother, let me look at these answers first. A moment later, after reading the answers and writing on the thick bast paper, a chi raised her head and gave a positive answer. If there is no accident, in another 4 or 5 days, a chi will be able to crack the resonance theory and study the resonance training method of the Dragon Knight, brother. Very well, I am looking forward to it. Leaving the seaside castle, List found Old Phil of the leathersmith shop and promised a lot of money to get Old Phil to go to the Magic Academy to cooperate with the magicians to do some small experiments. In order to ensure that the magicians would not treat Old Phil like a lab rat, List personally followed. He would not allow the magicians to conduct experiments on living people at this stage. All research that violated human ethics would be stopped by him at this stage. Before turning the magicians into researchers, they must be taught to abide by the law. When he came to the Magic Academy with Old Phil, the three magicians were dumbfounded. Sir Viscount, the descendant of the sun you mentioned is him, an old man? What do you think? Sir Viscount, the old man is useless. Let his descendants come over to cooperate with the research. Old Phil took the initiative to say, Sir Magician, Old Phil has no descendants, sorry to disappoint you. You don't have descendants? Why don't you get married? Old Phil used to be too poor to get married. He got married recently, but I'm afraid Old Phil can no longer produce offspring. Old Phil was already married to the widow. The two of them had been together for a long time, but the widow's stomach had never moved. The widow had given birth before, so there was a high chance that Old Phil had lost his function. Great Magician Lars asked directly, you can't do it anymore? Old Phil smiled sheepishly. Mr. Mage, I just can't get my wife pregnant. That's easy. Let Scylla concoct a potion for you to increase the vitality of the little person. When you go back, work hard and try to give birth as soon as possible. But first, you have to cooperate with us to draw a few vials of blood. The speaker was unintentional, but the listener was interested. List chose a quiet room and asked his servant to call Master Silier over. Do you know how to make a potion that can make people pregnant? Lord Viscount, you may have misunderstood. I don't know how to concoct a pregnancy potion, but I can concoct a potion that can increase the vitality of a person. This kind of medicine targets the weakness of old men. It can greatly increase the vitality of the little person, but it does not include the ability to strengthen the sex drive. His meaning was simple. His potion could increase the activity of sperm. Of course, the humans here did not know that the substance contained in the vagina was sperm. Ordinary people might not know anything, only knowing that the union between a man and a woman could give birth. Some magicians who had studied this kind of content believed that the male vagina contained a tiny person. After the act of love, the person would run into the woman's stomach, and the woman's menstrual blood would gradually raise the person into a baby. Silier was a supporter of this theory. I was once a magician who served an old noble. His son died on the battlefield, and no one inherited the title. In order to not let the family bloodline be cut off, he entrusted me to research a potion that could increase the vitality of the little person, and finally succeeded in giving birth to a new son. He was talking about the little person. List directly understood it as sperm. He immediately said, Silier, I want the formula for this potion. Write it down immediately and give it to me. I will convert it into your contribution and let you regain your freedom as soon as possible. He did not want it for himself, but for his cousin to try it out. If it succeeded, it would be a hassle. There was no reason for Silier not to do such a good thing. Very soon, the formula was written down, as well as the various details to pay attention to, densely covering several pages of paper. Liszt just glanced at it and no longer paid attention to it. He would have his servant make a copy and send it to Meopel later. Old Phil was also lucky. Originally, he was supposed to be a guinea pig, but in the blink of an eye, he had become an expert who would solve his infertility problem. Perhaps this was the impermanence of fate. Misfortune might be a blessing in disguise, and a blessing in disguise. Behind a good thing, there might be a hidden disaster, but there might also be another good thing waiting to descend. For Liszt, with the smoke mission's power of fate, which was suspected to be the remnant of the smoke dragon, fate was no longer impermanent. Everything he had was a good thing. Under his influence, good things happened to the people around him. The Count was a good example. Under normal circumstances, he might stop at the status of Count for the rest of his life. However, the day after old Phil excitedly returned home to make the little person, the Count, who had gone to the Blue Dragon Island to accept the promotion to the title of Count, returned with glory as the Oxtail Marquis. The messenger knight arrived at the flower town. Liszt immediately led his retainers and servants to the Tulip Castle. This was a major event of the family. When passing by the Coral City, he saw that the whole city was bustling with noise and excitement. All the commoners rushed to the streets, loudly shouting, "Tulip family, Oxtail Marquis, Sir Lord, Sir Marquis, Knight's glory favors," and other festive slogans. Without a doubt, this was an event organized by the Coral City's officials to curry favor. Among the cheering crowd, many people shouted, "Sir Liszt, Sir Viscount," and other slogans, and even, "Young Master Liszt." Liszt rode the chocobo Loki and galloped to the Tulip Castle in a few steps. Tulip flowers of various colors decorated the walls of the formerly tall and grayish-white castle, resembling a beautiful castle from a dream. Knight clad in mithril armor stood guard on both sides of the path up the mountain. Upon seeing Liszt, they saluted one after another. At the gate of the Tulip Castle, Liszt saw Lee William dressed in splendid attire. On his chest was a red tassel medal symbolizing the title of Marquis, and in his hand was a cane inlaid with sapphires. From now on, he was no longer the Earl of Coral Island, but the Oxtail Marquis. His territory was located on the Iron Hoof Islands Oxtail Territory. He was the lord of all the territories attached to the Oxtail City. He was the 7th Marquis of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. He was the lord of the high-spirited and upright Lee William. Chapter 676. My proud son, Liszt, you contributed a lot to my title. The Count, no, the Oxtail Marquis patted Liszt on the shoulder. He did not have a father's majesty, only a father's love. In fact, his title of Marquis was all earned by Liszt. Looking at the tall and handsome second son in front of him, he was full of emotions. When Liszt was born, he had high hopes for him because of his resemblance to Melissa, hoping that he could surpass himself. As Liszt grew up, his personality became more and more timid and eccentric, and his talent became more and more useless. This caused him to be disappointed, and he gradually showed indifference. Now, every step of Liszt was earth-shattering. He was so shocked that he had to look at him at the same level or even look up. His second son was as handsome as ever, and his talent could be said to have changed dramatically. Everyone returned to the castle's living room. There was a place for the women to gather and chat. The living room was filled with the followers of the Marquis of Oxtail, led by 4 viscounts, lifelong Viscount Levis, Viscount Eunice of Gravel City, Viscount Trick of Beer Island, and Viscount List of Black Horse Island. In his 20 years as an earl, Lee William did not obtain the followers of a Sky Knight, and none of his followers were promoted to Sky Knight. Liszt was an exception. However, with him being conferred the title of Marquis of Oxdale, there may be Sky Knight following him in the future. I was promoted to Marquis of Oxdale because everyone worked together to fight for the glory for me. In 10 days, I will hold a banquet to celebrate the promotion. At that time, the eldest prince and some of the country's nobles will come to congratulate me. During this time, all of you will send people to Oxdale with my officials to distribute your fiefs. Ironhoof Island was divided into 4. Obviously, the title of Marquis of Ironhoof Island could not be conferred, and no one would want the title of Marquis of Oxdale. Therefore, the Grand Duke divided the titles of Marquis of Oxdale, Marquis of Oxhorn, Marquis of Oxhoof, and Marquis of Ironhoof City. The territory of the Oxdale Marquis was called the Oxdale Territory. It governed 3 large cities, Oxdale City, and Oxrib City, as well as 10 small cities. Yunus and Trick did not have enough battle merits to be promoted to Earl, so they could only choose a small city. List did not even intend to choose a small city. He would leave here sooner or later. There was no need to spend effort to build other cities. Black Horse Island was enough for him to develop for many years. Once we have chosen our territory, we will proceed with the relocation. The Grand Duke gave me a 5-year harvest period. In other words, we have to move away from Coral Island within 5 years. Oxdale Marquis signaled for a squire to take out a map of Ironhoof Island. He said calmly, Ironhoof Island is divided into 4 parts, and Oxdale Hill needs to be rebuilt, but the benefits are obvious. More land, more trade. Also, Marquis Bull used to build a lot of things. The big guild will give me a discount. Apart from the fact that there were no elves farming and the master craftsmen were taken away by the Sapphire family, there were no other changes in Oxdale Hill. Even the serfs stayed in place to farm. Yunus and Trick looked at the map carefully, ready to determine the city they wanted first, and then carefully investigate. List held a teacup, leaned back in his chair, and wandered leisurely. Oxdale Marquis got up and motioned for Levis to continue entertaining Trick and others. He pulled List to the window of the living room to ensure that the conversation was not overheard. I have discussed with the Grand Duke. 10 years were not enough. The Grand Duke only promised that you do not have to follow him for 7 years. Continue to follow me and help me gain a foothold on Ironhoof Island. 7 years is enough. By the way, the Grand Duke scolded me a few times for this issue, thinking that I am too selfish. The relationship between father and son should not hinder your progress. Oxdale Marquis was not angry at the Grand Duke's scolding, and his expression was relaxed. But I have tied a string with the eldest prince, implying that you will follow him directly after 7 years. What is the prince's attitude? The prince thinks highly of you, and is naturally very happy about it. You should know that even if your identity cannot be exposed, you are still the second strongest person in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, the inheritor of the Ghost Blade, a powerful existence that defeated a domain knight. List's lips curled up. The nonsense about the Ghost Blade had really fooled a bunch of people. What do the Grand Duke and the Prince think about my legacy? The Grand Duke mentioned that the Sapphire family wants to buy the legacy, but I rejected it, so the Grand Duke did not mention it again. As for the Prince, he intends to marry the Tulip family in the future. How? You want Richard to marry the first prince's daughter? The person he chose to marry is your son. But I don't have a son yet. You will have one sooner or later, won't you? That is a matter for the future. List had no thoughts of marriage or children right now. He was a person with the ambition to live a long life. Perhaps he would leave behind an heir to inherit the country he had painstakingly fought for due to political needs, but there was no such need at the moment. Life was to enjoy life freely and freely. Oxdale celebration was set for 10 days later, so List only had a lunch at Tulip Castle and a simple chat before returning to his territory. 4 days later. In the study of the seaside villa, Oxdale was immersed in writing List's Handbook of the Sky. The Marquis had been anxiously waiting for this handbook, but he had delayed it again and again, unable to find the time to finish it. He had overestimated himself. Due to the fact that he had achieved full mastery from riding a dragon, there were many details of training that he did not know. Maybe I can go to Red Crab Island and have a chat with my grandfather. I can thoroughly understand the details of a full mastery Sky Knight's training. For now, let the Marquis wait for a while. He has waited for many years anyway, there is no rush. At this moment, Achi suddenly shouted, "Brother, I'm done." List was startled. He threw away the quill in his hand and ran straight to Achi's laboratory. Achi giggled as she held a piece of thick bast paper, her eyes filled with a praise-meet expression. She passed the paper to List. "Brother, this is a training plan for the Dragon Knight based on the principle of resonance. The training process may be a little complicated, and you and Leo will need to work together to adjust each other's frequencies to complete the resonance. Don't worry, I may be weaker than you in theoretical research, but actual combat is my forte." List took the thick bast paper and ruffled Achi's hair. He focused his attention on the training plan for the Dragon Knight. Chapter 677. The smoke mission made List raise his head slightly. Looking at Achi, who was immersed in deep thought in the distance, he knew that Achi must have learned something while studying the Dragon Knight's practice method, and the next step would be to touch the magic net. He had no good suggestions on how to touch the magic net, so he did not bother Achi. Then the smoke mission released a new mission. Mission: you may have ignored the Black Dragon Paris for a long time, but now that you have become a Dragon Knight, you have a deep understanding of the dragon's power, and you have the ability to use the dragon's power to fight and practice. Why not help Paris remove the erosion of the light dragon's magic and restore her normal body? Reward: Paris's path of practice. Oh. List suddenly blushed with shame. I almost forgot that I have to solve the problem of the light dragon's magic erosion for Paris. It stands to reason that the light dragon and the fire dragon are both elemental dragons. The light dragon can create a special existence like the dragon, and the fire dragon should be able to do the same. Just in time to determine the transformation method of the dragon with Paris. There has never been a dragon among humans. Because the dragon's power corrodes everything, this corrosive power is called White Dragon by the magicians. Those who are eroded will die, and through a certain ritual can be transformed into a White Dragon in the state of a ghost. List believes that the White Dragon should be similar to the undead fish, a kind of undead. In addition to the White Dragon, the transformation of the power of the White Dragon can also form the Black Dragon, which is Paris's current state. At the beginning, the court magician of the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf hoped to transform Paris and other mice into white dragons, but a thief stole the notebook and came up with a way to reverse it. Voluntarily dedicating everything to become a living white dragon, they succeeded in doing this and began to call themselves the Black Dragon. Although they retain their human bodies, they will be eroded by the power of the light dragon for a long time, and eventually become a part of the light dragon's magic. Now what List has to do is to remove the power of the light dragon and restore Paris's original body. But wait until I learn the new practice method of the Dragon Knight, and then try to help Paris recover. List waved the smoke mission away and continued to read. When all the content was digested and absorbed, he got up and left the seaside villa. Riding the chocobo, Loki ran to a wilderness and called out the little fire dragon Leo. "Leo, we are going to start a new practice method. Are you ready?" "Roar." "Very well, let's begin." He leaped up and landed on Leo's dragon tooth platform. In an instant, their hearts and souls became one, and they synchronized harmoniously. Then, a man and a dragon began to fly across the horizon. With List as the guide, he began to use the resonance between his spirit and mana. Resonance was just a metaphor. This kind of training method was on a completely different level from true physical resonance. List preferred to call it Dragon Knight Resonance, and recorded it in the List Dragon Knight Training Manual. It became a new cultivation method after demonic dragon chi refinement, dragon breath tempering, dragon power focus, dragon heart code, and dragon blood infection. The progress was much faster than Liszt had expected. He originally thought that this kind of training method that involved the mind and magic power would be very difficult. After all, a small mistake in the mind would cause the operation of magic power to go very wrong. However, perhaps it was the powerful effect of the enigmatic dragon fruit that erased Leo's evil thoughts, leaving only pure thoughts. It was not difficult for Liszt to guide him. Leo was like a blank piece of paper, allowing Liszt to paint freely. That's it, Leo. Keep it up. The human and dragon spirit frequency quickly fused, as if there was strength in each other, and their thoughts were synchronized. And with the help of the fusion of the spirit, Leo's magic power and Liszt's chi also became one. At this moment, he was like a missing piece of a puzzle that was pieced together at the special position of the Dragon Fang platform to complete the magic power circulation of the fire dragon. The moment the circulation was completed, Liszt suddenly felt that he had become a dragon. His wings were flapping vigorously, and the wind whistled in his ears. His vision also became the fire dragon's vision. The world that he saw through the dragon's eyes was far brighter and more colorful than what humans could see. If his field of vision was HD in the past, then Leo's field of vision was 4K UHD. Not only could he see such a clear and colorful new world, but he could even vaguely see the floating magic power in the air. There was a faint blue and white glow above the sea, a faint grayish-yellow glow on the mountains, and a faint green glow when the wind flowed. Liszt was completely immersed in it, so much so that he quietly activated the Chi's secret technique, Magic Eye. Something unexpected happened. He clearly activated the magic eye in the dragon's vision, and the world suddenly showed a different appearance. Everything was made of magic power. Unlike the rough magic world that he could observe, the world in his eyes now only had magic power. Be it matter itself or magic power, they were all outlined in the form of magic power. The sea was the flow of water magic power. The thick magic power was the sea itself, and the light magic power was the magic power in the sea. The light magic power was in the form of particles, and it slowly flowed in the thick, solid sea water. The light magic power seemed to be slightly precipitating into the solid sea water, and the solid sea water was also slowly releasing the light magic power. So, there is no strict boundary between the floating magic power and the real world, and it is constantly changing. So, the release of magic power is to speed up the transformation process? Whoosh! Flapping his wings hard, Liszt directly rushed into the clouds, and the clouds surrounded him. The clouds contained wind magic power, water magic power, and of course, there was more chaos magic power. Everything was dynamic and constantly changing, including between the wind magic power and the water magic power. Through the magical eyes of the dragon and the powerful effect of the magic eye, he observed that when the water magic power followed the body of the fire dragon, there was a small amount of water magic power, and the light directly changed into the light of the wind magic power. What makes them change their nature at will? Maybe it is not the magic power itself, but the movement of the magic power that makes them change their nature? Liszt had a sudden realization, as if an apple had hit his head. Then why does the knight's chi have different nature? Maybe at the beginning, the low-level chi does not have obvious movement, and the higher the level of the chi, the greater the movement ability? Even the high-level chi of the sky knight could already fly in the air because of excessive movement. He lowered his head. What he saw was Leo's claws, or rather, his own claws. The claws were made of red fire magic power. Then, what kind of powerful movement ability does the magic power of the dragon, especially the dragon's will? Unfortunately, before he could figure it out. Chapter 678. The 10 minutes of Dragon Rider resonance made Liszt feel that there was too much magic and inconceivable. It turned out that magic was everywhere in this world, and all matter was made of magic. This was a fundamental rejection of the world he originally knew. However, the matter transformed by magic retained a certain amount of the physical laws of the material world, which was why he was able to discover many familiar phenomena. Cold and heat, oceans and mountains, thunder and rain, plants, animals, and even the movement of the sun, moon, and stars were all like Earth. After exiting the Dragon Rider resonance, he felt very tired. Leo was also a bit tired, mainly on a spiritual level. His body, however, was still healthy and full of energy. However, this did not stop Liszt from continuing to ride Leo in the sky while slowly thinking, according to the physics of Earth, the faster the particles move, the higher the temperature, and the higher the temperature, the faster the particles move. In other words, the particle movement is the temperature on the microscopic level, and the temperature is the particle movement on the macroscopic level. Regardless of whether it was the laws of Earth or this world's triangular theory of magic, matter, and spirit, they were all interconnected and could be used for reference. After all, there were too many similarities between the external appearances of the two worlds. What he had more knowledge from Earth than the natives of this world was the knowledge from Earth. Then, the surrounding movement of magic particles, whether it is represented by magic, qi, and other phenomena formed by magic. Forget it, it's a bit of a headache. I'll just describe this content to a qi and let her think about it. Not getting into a dead end had always been his strong point. After getting rid of these complicated thoughts, his mood immediately became much more relaxed, and he enjoyed the coolness of riding a dragon. I'll rest for a bit and see when I can enter the Dragon Rider resonance again. He took out a few potions and drank them on the spot. There was no difference between him and Leo when he drank potions while riding a dragon. His qi and magic were already like milk and water. The Dragon Rider resonance is a type of training method, but the state I'm in can be described as Dragon Rider mode. When riding a dragon normally, he could use dragon power focus and other methods to display the powerful fighting strength of a dragon knight. However, this type of fighting method was still man and dragon fighting separately, at most mutually reinforcing each other. However, after entering the Dragon Rider mode, the man and dragon would be highly integrated, and there would be no difference between them, so their fighting strength would definitely increase greatly. I can even use the Magic Eye secret technique on Leo. Is it because of Leo's magic circulation method, or is it because the Dragon Rider mode simulates the effect of qi? Or is it that the Magic Eye is still being used by me, but because of the Dragon Rider resonance, the effects are amplified? Whether it was for the former reason or the latter reason, it didn't matter. This was a huge surprise. Since I can use magic eyes, does it mean that I can also use aura attenuation? If he had the aura attenuation secret technique, would it be able to reduce Leo's energy consumption? Also, can I use the red sun rising fire with Leo's help? These were all waiting for him to verify. Above the blue sky and white clouds, a man and a dragon drank pills while waiting for their spirits to recover. Liszt could feel how powerful the Dragon Rider mode was, and Leo was similarly attracted by the miraculous experience of this mode. All of them were so excited that they couldn't contain themselves. Just as Liszt and Leo were enjoying themselves in the sky. The little siren, a qi, was sitting in the room, thinking quietly. Nami, the mangrove elf, who she hadn't seen for many days, was sitting on her shoulder, holding a piece of peanut nougat. Nami, as one of the few elves who was sociable and liked to work, could proudly claim that every piece of candy she ate was earned through her hard work. Not only was she responsible for taking care of the little mallards in the mangrove forest of Mangrove Island and the mangrove forest of the estuary, but she also often went to the mangrove forest of Seagull Island to take care of the flamingos. Even with the large number of serfs involved and the introduction of artificial incubation mechanisms for mallard eggs and flamingo eggs, Nami still had to constantly sow mangrove saplings to maintain the normal development of the mangrove forest. There was no such thing as this cute elf. Liszt's favorite mallard eggs and flamingo eggs would not be so easy to eat. Chirp. Nami finished eating a peanut nougat and let out a comfortable chirp. She did not dare to speak too loudly for fear of disturbing a Qi who was in deep thought. But at this moment, she suddenly found that a Qi stretched out her right hand and seemed to be staring at her flawless white palm. However, the next moment, her slender fingers bloomed with a faint blue-white light. Following that, the pure white color of his flesh and blood quietly faded away. Instead, it was replaced by a light blue transparent color. Then her entire hand withdrew its flesh color, as if it had become a blue-white crystal. Chirp! Nami nervously flew up and flew in front of a Qi, wanting to remind a Qi what happened to her hand. But feeling a Qi's calm mood, she could not speak and just slowly hovered in front of a Qi. Watching a Qi's hand withdraw its flesh color, followed by her entire arm. Then half of her body, her chest and abdomen all faded. Then her buttocks and legs, the original seawater below her ankles also blended into this fading, until the entire shell completely faded. In the end, a Qi's neck also began to fade, and her entire body below her head turned into a blue-white crystal-like state. At this time, a Qi raised her head and seemed to notice Nami's concerned expression. She returned a slight smile. In the next second, her entire body faded, from the shell to her hair, turning into a blue-white crystal. This blue-white crystal did not last long, gradually fading, and finally, her entire body seemed to evaporate, disappearing without a trace under Nami's gaze. Chirp! 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 Nami could feel a Qi's existence through telepathy, but a Qi could not find her. With her limited intelligence, she could not understand this situation, and could only shout in panic. Suddenly, a Qi's voice sounded in Nami's ear. Nami, don't worry, a Qi is just using the weave to reshape her body. You know, the weave is really amazing, it can transform a Qi into the most basic magic element. In a moment, the A Qi that appears in front of you will be a new A Qi. Chirp! Nami turned her head to look for a Qi, but still could not find her. However, a Qi's voice did not stop. Do you know that after a Qi touches the weave and uses it to reshape her body, the first thing she has to do is to take off her shell? Although the shell is very good, Big Brother has always felt that it is a hindrance, and so does a Qi. Nami felt that the shell was good and did not want a Qi to throw it away. Chirp! A Qi, who was reshaping her body in the weave, immediately laughed. Of course not, a Qi's shell is a part of her body. It is like your elf's worm stalk. A Qi can already store it in her body, and she can also release it. It is like a magical equipment, protecting a Qi at all times. As she spoke, the air in front of Nami rippled like water, and then faint blue-white lines continued to superimpose, soon outlining a huge scallop with a diameter of 3 meters. When the blue-white lines gradually filled every trace of the shell, the color gradually solidified into white. It was the large shell that a Qi had been using before. Chapter 679. This chapter is dedadzed and will be updated with more information. The big shell fell on the floor of the house, and Nami flew up, trying to call a Qi out. But the shell didn't open. Just above the shell, a ripple-like wrinkle appeared in the air, followed by countless blue and white lines, gradually outlining the outline of a Qi. This time, a Qi's legs were no longer water belts below her ankles, but real feet. A pair of small and delicate feet. A Qi was only 1.5 meters tall, and her figure was slender, but her curves were perfect. The biggest difference from humans was that her ears had transparent fin-shaped auricles diagonally upward, and there were 2 transparent fins like wings on her shoulder blades. Other than that, there was no difference. In this way, the blue and white crystal was gradually outlined from the blue lines, and then the crystal gradually colored, restoring a Qi's former snow-white and tender skin. A few strands of water belts were still wrapped around the key parts, blocking the key points that people were eager to explore, leaving only the beauty of the combination of innocence and temptation. Chirp! Nami was very happy, her siren sister was back. The brand new Aqi's feet slowly landed on the shell. This was the first time she stood up on the ground, and she couldn't help but look down at her feet, the snow-white instep, cute toes, and crystal fingernails. She thought it would take more than 10 years to grow out her feet, but now with the power of the magic net, she had completed the reconstruction of her feet. She was very satisfied with this change. A siren without feet couldn't walk on the ground. With a pair of feet, she could accompany Liszt, explore many beautiful sceneries, and live on land. This was the life she had been longing for the past 2 years, and today it finally came true. It made her feel far more excited than advancing to magic shooter. She stretched out her hand and motioned Nami to stand up. Achi waved her hand again, and the shell under her feet quickly shrank until it shrank to the size of a matchbox and fell into her other palm. Nami flew over curiously, picked up the shell, and laughed. Chirp. I'll let you play with it later. Chirp. Nami obediently let go, and Achi gently picked up the shell and clipped it to her blue hair, like a small and delicate hairpin. The hose was attached to the shell hairpin. Nami, let's go to the sea. Achi can't wait to try the power of a magic shooter. Big Brother has already become a dragon knight. Achi can't fall too far behind Big Brother. A high mage can definitely help Big Brother accomplish his small goal of establishing a nation. Without the shells, Achi still swam fast. Especially when her body was faintly glowing with bluish-white light, it was as if she had instantly merged with the seawater. Every time she moved her feet, she would appear in another place dozens of meters away. Lolth, the rainbow whale, wanted to follow her, but Achi shook her off after a few seconds. It could only chirp and chirp as it returned to the castle by the sea. There was a pool specially built for it on the beach, where it could enjoy the most delicious silver-striped fish. In the canal connected to the sea in Thorn Castle, it could also enjoy the delicious fish in the well, which was fed by specialized staff. Unknowingly, after a few breaths, Achi had already left the coral island and arrived at the waters near the ringed reef. He plucked the shell from his hair and tossed it onto the surface of the sea. In an instant, it turned into a giant scallop. Then, he released Nami from his hand and motioned Nami to stay in the shell. She quietly stood on the surface of the sea. Wherever there was seawater, she could stand as if she was standing on flat ground. With a gentle wave of his hand, he immediately cast a high-level magic water spiral fusion. In the next second, the distant sea exploded and set off huge waves. Just this casual attack was dozens of times more powerful than the water spiral fusion released before. The most important thing was that there was almost no magic consumption. Achi could sense the existence of the magic net at any time and anywhere, and use magic from the magic net to replenish the consumption. In other words, her magic was almost limitless. After several experiments, she felt that even the most basic magic water arrow was enough to exert the power of high-level magic in her hands. Ever since she touched the magic net and elementalized and reshaped her body, she felt that the magic in her body had changed qualitatively and was no longer ordinary magic. Is it the extreme nature magic that Big Brother mentioned, similar to the magic of Dragon Will? Achi shook her head. It didn't seem like it, but the specific situation needed further research. So, the sea around the atoll was affected. Due to the limitations of her body, it was difficult for Achi to cast spells of other elements other than water magic. However, she had mastered many water magic spells, including many of her own, and the necro-fish ugly devil spell that Virginia had recorded. She could cast it for more than 10 minutes without stopping. After bombarding the water magic for a full 2 hours, Achi smiled with satisfaction. She had collected enough information to complete the verification of the magic net after the elementalization. Then, she continued to experiment with her natural ability. As a siren, she had the ability to control seawater. After the elementalization, this ability did not disappear. On the contrary, it was greatly improved. The seawater under Achi's feet swirled and slowly rose, lifting her up. As the seawater continued to rise, it was as if a waterspout rose from the sea. The waterspout rose to a height of 100 meters before it reached a cheese limit. She stretched out her hand and pointed, and the waterspout quickly tilted forward. Next, she was like a water flyer. The waterspout lifted her in all kinds of fancy ways, making her fly around. Then, he continued to control new waterspouts. He could control 10 waterspouts at a maximum. These waterspouts kept rolling on the sea, stirring up the sea. The whole sea was like a tsunami, one wave higher than the other, roaring and spreading around. My brother said that magic shooters can fight with dragons alone. Achi feels that she now has the ability to compete with dragons. Although I can only release water magic, it is really powerful in the sea. Achi clenched her fist, and suddenly all the waterspouts exploded in an instant, and the sky was filled with raindrops. Enough playing. She experimented with her new ability. She picked up Nami again, put away her shell hairpin, and returned to the seaside castle in a few breaths like a swan in the sea. Achi's speed before was 100 kilometers per hour, but now it was probably close to 500 or 600 kilometers per hour. Setting off from Coral Island to the mainland, it would only take 2 or 3 hours to truly swim in the sea, unfettered. Except for the elemental dragons, water dragons, there was nothing in the sea that could threaten her. Even the water dragons might not be able to hurt her. This speed alone was not something that any creature could catch up with. Back in her laboratory, Achi tried to calm down from the excitement of playing. After a few deep breaths, she regained her tranquil temperament. She began to write and draw on thick bast paper at her desk. A pair of small white feet stepped in the water. It seemed that she did not know where to put them. She stepped on the left, stepped on the right, and stepped on the top of her feet. Chapter 680. Boom! The little fire dragon Leo's body twisted and spun in the air, instantly releasing a scorching sun stab, which came from the high-level battle energy secret manual, Red Sun Rising Flames. When List and Leo entered the Dragon Knight mode, he quickly discovered that Magic Eye, Aura Decay, and Red Sun Rising Flames could all be used on Leo, or to be precise, using the battle energy in his body, but according to the special state of the Dragon Knight resonance, Leo was able to use them. It was a relatively close definition. It could probably be compared to a CPU and a graphics card. List was a quad-core or even octa-core CPU of a computer, with powerful processor performance. However, the graphics card was an integrated graphics card, so no matter how exquisite the battle energy was, it could only play an ordinary effect. Because the graphics card could not be used, it was easy to smoke. Leo, on the other hand, had an independent 2080 graphics card. Perhaps its CPU was rough, but its graphics performance was top-notch. When List's octa-core CPU was matched with Leo's 2080 graphics card, it could drive the top 3A masterpieces. Dragon Knight was such a match made in heaven. Boom! A large pit with a diameter of more than 10 meters was blasted on the ground. List controlled Leo to land around the pit, and a few wisps of smoke rose from the ashes at the edge of the pit, creating a mysterious boss aura for him and Leo. Now that I know the power of the Dragon Knight, before I entered the Dragon Knight mode, I'm afraid I would have been hung up and beaten by the Dragon Knight mode. Fortunately, I didn't encounter a real Dragon Knight before, otherwise, I'm afraid I would have been slain within 3 to 5 moves, and the dragon slaying battle would have been a joke. Despite the lingering fear in his heart, he quickly felt relieved. With the guidance of the smoke mission, he had already entered the Dragon Knight mode before the dragon slaying battle. After a few more run-ins, he believed that he would become stronger and stronger, and the capital to deal with the dragon slaying battle would be stronger. Most importantly, now that the mission was successfully completed, Achi was also about to advance to Magic Shooter. With the combined power of a Dragon Knight and a Magic Shooter, they could go anywhere in the world. I just don't know if the Dragon Knight has an exclusive Dragon Chi secret book. The Sapphire family has the Dragon Knight Chi secret book left behind by the first Grand Duke. I don't know if it is a Chi secret book specially for riding a dragon. Alas, I boast of myself as a genius and have a vision far beyond that of the Aborigines, but I have yet to create a Chi secret book. Back then, when he was bragging to William, Levis, and the others, he was very disdainful, saying that the combat energy manuals of the predecessors might not necessarily be suitable for him, and that he could create new combat energy manuals at any time. In the end, after several interruptions, he succeeded in riding a dragon, but he still didn't create any battle aura manuals. Actually, you can't blame me for bragging. I really don't have the time to study battle aura manuals. Who would have thought that after becoming a Sky Knight half a year ago, I would directly succeed in riding a dragon, without any buffer at all? He comforted himself. He swore to himself that he would create a real dragon fighting technique based on his and Leo's actual situation. If there was enough time, he would also supplement the battle aura manuals of the Earth Knight and Sky Knight stages. On one hand, it was to leave a souvenir, and on the other hand, it could enrich the future generations. In addition, I must obtain a battle aura domain secret book, and I must also accumulate a lot of battle aura secret skills. Although Magic Eye and Aura Attenuation are good, they are all auxiliary, and there are no battle aura secret skills. Before he could ride a dragon and was known as a Ghost Blade, the battle aura secret skills already didn't play too much of a role. They were more of an aid for the Sky Knight to compete with each other. But it was always good to have more battle aura secret skills, which could further enrich the family's heritage. In any case, if he really wanted to establish a country overseas, List didn't want his country to quickly decline after a few generations. At the very least, it should last for thousands of years, so that the bloodline could spread to all parts of the world. After tossing and turning for a long time, the sky was already dark. Both man and dragon were so tired that their stomachs were growling. They squatted in the wilderness, one happily nibbling on a large steak, the other drinking a bit of milk to quench his thirst. When Leo was full, he rewarded him with a few potions as dessert. List waved his hand and had Leo turn into a ball of flame, which rushed into his body. Let's go back. I have to talk to a Chi in detail after exploring a lot of new experiences. Perhaps these contents, especially the concept of a magic particle movement, will inspire her to promote to an arch-wizard. He whistled. In the distance, the chocobo Loki, who was leisurely grazing, eagerly ran over, carrying him like a gust of wind towards the flower town. Unfortunately, no matter how hard Loki tried, List found it boring. After riding a dragon, riding another mount was a far cry from the riding experience. But in any case, after arriving at the seaside villa, he still grabbed a handful of secret wheat grains as a reward. So it was. After eating a sumptuous dinner in the castle, List went straight to the seaside villa. The villa's room was bright. In order to protect a Chi's eyes from reading, studying, and experimenting at night, he installed several crystal lamps in the room. In any case, he was now rich and had no shortage of money. A Chi, I'm back. List was about to open the door and quickly communicate with a Chi. But the next moment, the door opened by itself, or rather, was opened by a Chi. The little siren stood in front of the door, smiling sweetly. Big brother. A Chi, you. List was a little stunned. In the past, because a Chi could not move freely in the room, he had to open the door himself. He did not expect that this time, it would be a Chi opening the door for him. Most importantly, a Chi was standing on the floor in front of him. List's eyes couldn't help but wander down along a Chi's eyes, past several mysterious areas covered by the water ribbon, past her smooth thighs and calves, and directly fixed on a pair of white and flawless feet, pink and tender, which made people want to play with them unconsciously. A Chi seemed to be a little uncomfortable under List's hot gaze. She could not help but shrink her feet and said, Big brother, a Chi has advanced to Magic Shooter. Magic Shooter? You have advanced to Magic Shooter. List was shocked. In an instant, he forgot about Qi's feet. He directly picked up Qi by the waist and spun her around twice. My little siren is amazing. You are the only magic shooter in this sea area and even in the 2 kingdoms that I know of. There were no records of magic shooters in the Eagle Kingdom and the Steel Ridge Kingdom. As for whether there were any in private, at least List knew that Qi was the only magic shooter. In a time when the magic network had been shrinking since the era of the Moon Empire, it was not easy to produce a new magic shooter. Chapter 681. Whether Qi was considered an adult or not was not easy to say. However, since Qi was promoted to a magic shooter, her body had been elemental remodeling with the help of the magic net. While retaining the independence of her body and mind, she was integrated into the magic net and became a part of it. The magic net is a very strange existence. Qi can't perceive where it ends, but it covers every corner of the world. It can open a hole anywhere and then release magic with the help of the magic net. Even on land, it can release powerful water magic. Qi described the magic net in detail. Although she said that the Dragon Knight was like a smaller version of the magic net, the Dragon Knight's magic net and the real magic net were worlds apart. Of course. Even if Qi tried to describe the image of the magic net, List's understanding of the magic net was still very vague. After all, the magic net was a very abstract existence, and it was difficult to really understand its existence without touching it personally. It was more like a rule existence than a real object. So the magic you absorbed already belongs to the magic of the magic net. Do you think it can reach the level of dragon will? List asked. Although he was tempted by Qi's pair of white feet when he first saw her, he couldn't help but feel restless. But the desire for knowledge and the respect for power made him quickly put aside the distractions in his mind and enthusiastically discussed the magic net with Qi, chasing the truth together. It may be different from the dragon will that you described, brother, but Qi has to analyze Bilio's dragon will and the magic of the magic net. That's not difficult. Bilio can have as much dragon will as he wants. With List's current relationship with Bilio, Bilio would not refuse if he wanted some dragon will. But you know that I have the magic eye. Now release the magic of the magic net and let me check it. What is so magical about it? Qi nodded. Then he cast the basic magic water arrow. A water arrow condensed in his hand. He didn't shoot it but just floated quietly. His pupils were like a starry vortex. List had already cast the magic eye and carefully observed the water arrow. There was blue and white water attribute magic that continuously maintained its existence. This type of magic was extremely condensed, but unfortunately, List didn't enter Dragon Rider mode, so he couldn't observe the movement of the magic particles. However, he could sense that the mana of the weave was different from ordinary mana. It dissipated much slower and was much more condensed. Qi, my initial feeling is that the weave's mana isn't at the limit of draconic will. It's more like the ordinary mana released by a dragon. Or to put it more accurately, it should be at the level of my draconic fighting Qi. I didn't expect the mana of the weave to be so powerful. Combat aura was a special kind of magic extracted from the human body. Beginner Do Qi, Intermediate Do Qi, Advanced Do Qi, this was a complete advancement form. Basically, Advanced Do Qi was the final form of Do Qi. As for the dragon aura, strictly speaking, it no longer belonged to the category of aura. It was continuously fused and purified with the help of the dragon's magic power, reaching a higher level of magic power. Just as you said, the Dragon Knight is a smaller version of the weave. List's imagination gradually went wild. Does this mean that the draconic fighting Qi released by the Dragon Knight is actually very similar to the mana of the weave? So the draconic fighting Qi and the weave's mana are of the same level? Using levels might not be accurate. It would be clearer to use energy levels to express it. Big Brother's words make a lot of sense. Qi nodded in agreement. She rather worshipped Liszt because Liszt had imparted too much mystical knowledge to her, such as the movement of celestial bodies, the Big Bang, gravitational waves, wormholes, the 3 laws of thermodynamics, as well as the structure of cells, the 4 major tissues of the human body, and so on. In her heart, Liszt's knowledge was far more profound than that of any other mage. This was indeed the case. The knowledge that Liszt brought was the summary and exploration of Earth's scientists over 1,000 years. The humans of this world were still immersed in Do Qi and magic, unable to extricate themselves from it. All day long, they were either training or fighting. Farming depended on the elves, and mining depended on the dragons. They did not have the motivation to develop technology. The triangular theory of matter, magic, and spirit was too broad, causing humans to not focus on material technology, but to walk the path of magic expansion. But it was normal when one thought about it. As long as one trained, they could become stronger and plunder everything. Who would be willing to painstakingly invent and create? Even as a transmigrator, Liszt had enjoyed the light of civilization in modern society, but he was still attracted by magic and could not extricate himself from becoming stronger. He had no interest in promoting the development of the Industrial Revolution. If one could have everything by picking up elves and riding a dragon, why not choose such a shortcut? Why not promote the Industrial Revolution? Instead of spending hundreds of years constantly promoting industrial development and barely creating weapons of mass destruction like the atomic bomb that could grow mushrooms, it was better to ride a few more dragons. All in all, Liszt could indeed be called a polymath in this world. He and Achi carefully compared the magic of the dragons and the weave, and came to the conclusion that the 2 types of magic were essentially at the same level, belonging to the same energy level. The will of the dragon is the ultimate type of magic. The ordinary magic of the dragons and the magic of the weave are high-level magic, and the other stray magic is low-level magic. The discussion lasted until late into the night. Achi concluded, the other forms of magic, such as combat aura, blood magic, druid magic, and the magic inherited by ancient warriors and ancient wizards should all be branches of low-level magic. They are still low-level magic in essence, while dragon combat aura is a branch of high-level magic. Liszt quickly recorded in his thick bast paper notebook, the knight's combat aura is a training system based on low-level magic. After becoming a dragon knight, the combat aura turns into high-level magic. It is the same for mages. All kinds of magic are evolved from low-level magic, and only archmages turn into high-level magic. Based on what was known so far, only dragon knights and archmages were involved in high-level magic power. The other ancient warriors and ancient mages were still working on low-level magic power. That was why during the era of the Moon Empire, when the weave was strong, mages ruled the world. At the current stage, the weave had shrunk, and the dragon knight, who owned the weave, emitted light and heat. Thus, the knight began to rule the world. Compared to the worship of knowledge of mages, the knight's training was more barbaric, causing the prosperous civilization of the Moon Empire to be lost after a few thousand years. We should divide them into levels and define the nature of each level of magic. This will make it easier to publish books in the future. Liszt finally said, low-level magic is called low-energy magic, high-level magic is called high-energy magic, and the ultimate magic, which is the will of the dragon, is called super-energy magic. In short, they were low magic, high magic, and supreme magic. Earth Knight, Sky Knight, Domain Knight, Mage, Archmage, Bearskin, and Vampire were all low magic professions. Dragon Knight and Archmage were high magic professions. Chapter 682. In the final analysis, the difference between low magic, high magic, and supreme magic lay in the difference in the speed of motion of the magic particles, but it was difficult to clearly understand the nature of such a microscopic level. Liszt only told Achi the concept of particle motion and no longer delved into it. Achi, who had been promoted to magic shooter, had proved that her talent could beat most humans in seconds, and her IQ should be able to win a Nobel Prize on Earth. Therefore, Handing over the more difficult problems to Achi could better liberate List for his training as a dragon knight. But before he left, he had another thing to do: measure Achi's 3 measurements and other data, and then make a batch of clothes for her. Pajamas, home clothes, magic cloaks, and aristocratic dresses must all be there. If one day List founded a country, Achi would be the country's eldest princess. Although he could basically determine Achi's physical data at a glance, List still took out a tape measure himself and carefully measured Achi to get the most accurate number. After recording the number on the thick bast paper, List smiled and touched Achi's hair. After the clothes are made, you can live in my castle. You can go anywhere you want in my territory, but try not to reveal your siren identity, so as not to attract the malice of others. I know, brother. Achi nodded reservedly. She had been yearning for life on land for a long time. When the time comes, if you like, I can arrange for you to go to the Mage Tower, where you know Chris and other great mages. You can arrange for them to work on some simple topics and let them help you share the research tasks. Of course, don't reveal your identity as a magic shooter for the time being. Whether it was him or Achi, they had just advanced to a high magic profession. They needed time to become stronger, so it was better to keep a low profile for the time being. Finally, after kissing Achi's forehead, List got up and left the seaside villa. After returning to the castle, he handed Achi's figure data to the castle's housekeeper, Mrs. Morrison, and asked her to arrange for someone to sew clothes immediately. First make a set of magic cloaks and undershirts, which must be worn tomorrow morning. At the same time, make a set of aristocratic dress, which must be completed within 4 days. The other clothes can wait. Even the most professional tailor could not sew a set of clothes immediately. The better the clothes, the more time was needed, especially the aristocratic dress. Master, how should I choose the fabric of the clothes? The best fabric, the same size as my clothes. The next morning, the tailor arranged by Mrs. Morrison had already made a magic cloak and undershirt overnight. List gave them to Achi after he finished his morning exercises. Achi, put on this suit, I will take you to Flower Town and Black Horse Island. Yes. List left the room and closed the door. He didn't think about peeking at the scenery while Achi was changing her clothes. In fact, he didn't even think about it. He was just chatting awkwardly with the giant kelp sprite, Parker, in the worm room of the pond. Achi actually grew legs and became as handsome as you and me. Really? Of course, there is still a gap. Hee hee. I don't like her hair. Tawny is the prettiest color, like handsome Parker. I suggest you also change into a tawny suit. It looks pleasing to the eye, otherwise it will be difficult for your handsomeness to keep up with Parker's footsteps. List smiled. I also think tawny is better, but I am a nobleman. Frac Abier is the most suitable dress for my identity. Chatting with Parker was basically meaningless narcissistic words. There was something wrong with this great elf's brain circuit. Fortunately, Achi was not a slow little girl and quickly changed her clothes. Black leather boots, a black wizard robe, and a black hooded magic cloak completely covered Achi's body. Only a pure and flawless face was hidden under the hood. Her big blue eyes were still deep and clear, making it difficult to ignore the look in them. There was no beauty or ugliness in the wizard cloak. It was almost the same for people of any size, so there was nothing to comment on. List nodded slightly. Parker shook his head quickly. It doesn't look good, it doesn't look good. Achi looks too ugly in black clothes. The only advantage is that it covers your blue hair. You should wear tawny clothes, a color like the handsome Parker, or you will be too far behind. There was no smile on Achi's little face. Instead, she felt a little awkward. Brother, Achi doesn't like to wear clothes. You'll get used to it. These fabrics are very uncomfortable. Brother, you wear clothes like this every day. Don't you feel uncomfortable? Because I'm already used to it. However, the clothes here really don't fit well. I'll feel much better after wearing them for a few more days. Wearing clothes is very inconvenient. They will get wet when you swim. Achi has worn leather armor once, and it's even more uncomfortable when it's wet. She rarely complained. Obviously, the clothes caused her a series of discomfort. Brother, in blood magic, clothes can be made into magic equipment that can be stored in the body at will. Achi wants to make such clothes herself. If you can improve the vampiric magic, it will naturally be a good thing. Also, make me a set of combat clothes that can be stored and stored. List understood what Achi was thinking. When he swam on the rainbow whale Lolth, he often had to endure the discomfort of wearing wet clothes. Achi was full of confidence. Well, this kind of magic is not difficult. Achi will soon be able to achieve it. Let's go to Flower Town and then go to Black Horse Island. There is a black dragon Paris there. Her physical problems are still waiting for me to solve. You can help me with this. I know. Brother said that Black Dragon Paris is the leader of the Black Horse Island Patrol Group. She once saw the Light Dragon and was eroded by the magic of the Light Dragon. Achi used to think about how to save this Black Dragon. I have a lot of inspiration that should be able to provide help to Brother. Achi, who was wearing leather boots, walked a few steps to get used to the heels behind the boots. Because there were too many feces in the city, boots had finger-long heels. Outside the seaside villa stood List's knight, valet, and others. Seeing List go in alone but come out with a female magician, they had some doubts in their hearts, but no one showed them. For List, the son of glory, this was just a normal operation. Whenever List went out riding a dragon, they would not be shocked at all. It was just that they were used to it. Bring the carriage over. List ordered. The knight immediately rushed the carriage. List personally helped Achi into the carriage, and then he himself boarded the carriage and accompanied Achi in the carriage around Flower Town. They enjoyed the work of ordinary people in the town and the beautiful countryside scenery. Finally, the carriage stopped at the entrance of the nameless castle. List showed his gentlemanly demeanor and helped Achi down. He smiled and said, Achi, you have lived in this castle for many days, but this is the first time you have seen it in its entirety. Yes. Achi raised her head and looked at the two-story castle, showing a happy smile. It was a beautiful memory worth remembering for a lifetime. She met her closest brother, List, and opened the door of the magic world under the leadership of List. Since then, her fate has completely changed. She is no longer a little siren in the sea, but a magician who pursues the truth. At this time, from the apple orchard, a huge black dog came to List's side, rubbed List, and looked up at Achi. His nose kept sniffing Achi's scent. It's Dosen. Achi recognized the big black dog and wanted to reach out and touch Dosen's fur. Suddenly, a familiar cry came from the castle. Chapter 683. This chapter is titled, Starting from Today, Wan Jia Jia. Wow! Naturally, it was the nameless castle's tyrant, the thorn sprite, Ella. It naturally knew Ella. Sometimes when List went to the castle by the sea, he would take it with him, so it was not a stranger at all. It was the first time it had seen Achi with feet, but it was not surprised at all. Probably its IQ was not enough to be surprised by whether Achi had feet or not. Moreover, Achi was dressed in a more common magician outfit. It landed on List's shoulder, grabbing a strand of pale blonde hair. Ella waved to Achi as a greeting. The siren's shell bathtub was good, but this time she didn't bring a bathtub, so Ella was not interested in her. Then it saw Dosen rubbing against List and immediately raised its hand to sow the seeds. When Trembling Woods saw this, he reflexively jumped back, and then found that Ella did not sow the seeds. Trembling Woods grinned at Ella. But soon it turned its head and continued to look at Achi. It was not known whether it was anxious to look at Achi or because it was afraid to face the tyrant Ella. Achi stretched out her hand and wanted to touch Dosun. List signaled with his eyes, and Dosun stood still, letting the siren, who was more than 1.55 meters tall, touch its shiny black hair. Dosun is really obedient. He has been accompanying his brother in the war. He is really a loyal blizzard beast. Achi touched Dosun and looked into the depths of the apple orchard. The 8 little ones have grown so big. They are almost the same size as Dosun. Is the smallest one stupid woman? Yes, it's a pity that stupid woman can no longer give birth to little blizzard beasts. Otherwise, I would have a blizzard beast legion, and it would be easy to attack the city. At this time, the butler Carter came over, bowed and asked, "Master, who is this magician?" Achi Royd's truth. She is my sister, Mr. Carter. From now on, Achi will live in the castle. She will have the same status as me. List introduced Achi to Carter. Ask Mrs. Morrison to prepare a room for Achi. Buy whatever she needs. Also, Achi is a vegetarian. Prepare more fruits for her diet. Yes, Master. Carter quickly bowed to Achi. Hello, Miss Achi. I am the butler of Master's castle, Carter Claypot. If you need anything, please tell me. I will listen to you on behalf of all the servants in the castle. In fact, he was very curious about Achi's identity and how she became his master's sister. He had accompanied the rise of the Tulip family all his life, so he was very clear about the bloodline relationship between the members of the family. There was definitely no relative named Acheroids. There was not even a magician relative, and nobles rarely practiced magic. However, this did not prevent him from obeying List's instructions and treating Achi as the owner of the castle. He did not speculate about Achi's true identity or the relationship between her and List. He just treated her as a real brother and sister. Achi nodded and did not speak. She did not like to express herself in front of strangers. Soon, List took Achi to the living room of the castle. Butler Carter quickly summoned all the servants in the castle to meet the new owner of the castle. However, there was no grand introduction. Achi did not like this kind of noisy scene. She preferred to read quietly, instead of getting along with people and socializing. At noon, they had lunch in the castle. Only List and Achi were at the table. In front of Achi, there was only a small fruit plate with a variety of fruits. In front of List, there was a dazzling array of chicken, fish, and eggs. Each of them was served on a large plate and the portions were plentiful. Compared to Achi, who could eat a few raspberries for a meal, he almost had to eat the food expenses of a commoner's family for several years. Not only did he have to eat and drink well, but the cost of magic potions was also large. After all, he was not alone. There was a fire dragon in his body. After eating, List asked, "How does it feel to live in the castle?" "It's a little constrained. Achi doesn't really like so many people watching her eat. It feels weird. I wasn't used to it before, but now I've adapted. The social system is like this. These are the basic etiquette that a noble needs to maintain." Then let's go to your room and have a look. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, let the servants change it again. Achi's room was next to List's room. Because there had been no women living in the castle for a long time, the furnishings were made of quilts and bed sheets prepared for List before. List preferred pure colors and a dark style, so Achi's room looked a bit old-fashioned. There was no lively temperament that a young girl's boudoir should have. However, Achi didn't care about this at all. The place she proposed to improve was the absence of books. If there are no books in the bedroom, it will not be comfortable at all. There should be a few rows of bookshelves and you can wander in the sea of knowledge. That way, even when you sleep, you can dream of exploring the truth. List's mouth twitched. The little siren was still captured by the truth. Like most magicians, she always wanted to pursue knowledge and explore the truth. "Mr. Carter, move all the magic books in my study to Qi's bedroom. Just move half of them over. The study also needs some magic books to decorate. In the afternoon. Departure to Black Horse Island. List was going to ride the colorful whale Lolth and take Qi to Flower Town. However, Qi, who was a little depressed in the castle, quickly became lively after entering the sea. Brother, don't ride Lolth. Let Qi send brother to Black Horse Island with a shell. Huh. Soon List understood how magical Qi's shell was. Not only could it be turned into a hair clip, but it could also be used as a shell airship. The waterspout carried the shell below at a speed of at least 200 kilometers per hour. The shell maintained a height of 10 meters above the sea, whistling and galloping, and it took only half an hour to reach Black Horse Port. When List and Qi jumped from the shell and landed on the wooden planks of the dock. All the workers immediately saluted List under the leadership of the dock officials. List did not bring any entourage, and there was no ostentation, but this did not damage his heroic image. In the Black Horse Island territory, he was the faith. Soon, officials brought 2 horses. Changed to a carriage. List had not taught Qi how to ride a horse, and a mage wearing a magic robe was not suitable for riding a horse. The port officials did not have good eyesight. After changing to a carriage, they went directly to the mage tower. At the same time, someone was sent to inform the head of the patrol group, Paris, to come over. On the first floor of the mage tower, Dean Chris Truth saw Qi next to List. Qi's petite figure and flawless face were impossible to ignore. And as a great mage, Chris could feel a magic aura from Qi that made her heart palpitate. Lord Viscount, who is this Mr. Magician? Chris asked directly. Let's find a quiet room and talk. List did not intend to hide it from Chris. He still needed Chris to support Qi's magic research. Led by Chris, the 3 went directly to her office on the Mage Tower. After sending away several magic apprentices who acted as assistants, Chris personally made tea for List and Qi. Tea had now become a popular drink in the Mage Tower. Chris, please sit down. List said directly without any foreshadowing, you must be curious about the identity of Qi Royd's truth. I hope you are not too surprised. In addition to being my sister, she is also a magic shooter. Clatter. As soon as his voice fell. Chapter 684. Her mental fortitude is still not strong enough, List thought regretfully as he watched Chris accidentally break the teacup. Magic shooters and Dragon Knight were unfathomable existences, but as a Sky Knight or a great sorcerer, they were experienced and knowledgeable people with status. Their mental fortitude should not be so weak. However, he still said gently, calm down, Chris. There is no need to be so surprised. Chris looked down at the broken teacup and the spilled tea on the floor, and seemed to understand that she was too surprised. Lord Viscount, are you sure you are not wrong? Your sister is so young, are you sure she is not a great sorcerer, but a legendary magic shooter? You should know that I am not a person who likes to joke. Qi has only recently come into contact with the weave and completed the elemental transformation, becoming a true magic shooter. She is probably the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, the only magic shooter born in the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Eagle Bear Kingdom in the past 100 years. Is she really a magic shooter? Chris clutched her chest with one hand, still looking at Qi in disbelief. She had accidentally broken the teacup just now because of the sudden shock, but the shattering of the teacup had also dissolved her shock and allowed her to quickly calm down. She felt that List might be joking. However, there was not a hint of a joke in List's tone. And this seemingly petite, clear-eyed, and flawless female sorcerer did not seem to be joking at all. Most importantly, the faint aura emitted from her body made her heart palpitate, but when she tried to capture it carefully, the feeling disappeared, as if it was just an illusion. But as a great sorcerer, her 5 senses were sharp, and she was especially sensitive to magic. Chris absolutely did not believe that she would randomly hallucinate. So, it was very likely that all of this was real. The petite female sorcerer in front of her was really a magic shooter. Known as the embodiment of truth that walked the secular world, she had gradually become a legendary magic shooter. Great sorcerers like Chris had never heard of a living magic shooter. They had only more or less read the magic books passed down by magic shooters, and admired the elegance of magic shooters from a few words. Odom truth, Kawasaki truth. Many mages could call out the names of these magic shooters, but they were basically all magic shooters of the Moon Empire era. Bathed in the glory of the magicians ruling the world, all other professions were regarded as heresy, and only the magicians were orthodox. From the mainland to the moon, there were legends about them. Unfortunately, as the times changed, the knight quickly replaced the sorcerer as the rightful ruler of the world. Although the other ancient warriors and ancient mages were not treated as heretics, they were still being devoured and destroyed. The mischievous List was about to explain to Chris why Achi was a magic shooter in detail, fully enjoying the change in her expression from disbelief to confusion, to shock, and finally to belief. Achi suddenly raised her hand without saying a word. Then, a water arrow suddenly condensed, and the next moment, the water arrow flashed from her hand to Chris, hovering less than 3 inches in front of her. This sudden turn of events gave Chris another fright. But looking at the suspended water arrow in front of her, she was immediately stunned. Magic shooters' control over magic is completely different from that of archmages. Chris, you can use your heart to feel this water arrow, because it is condensed from the magic power of the weave, and maintaining it consumes the magic power of the weave. As long as I want it to, it can exist for a very, very long time. It was practically the first time Achi had said such a long sentence to a stranger. It surprised List. It made Chris tremble even more. In her knowledge, once magic was released, it could not be stopped. It could only continue to be released or directly collapse. However, a basic water magic, water arrow, just hovered in front of her. She could clearly feel the magic power that continuously maintained the water arrow. She subconsciously stretched out her finger and touched the water arrow itself. The condensed water passed through her finger, but there were no signs of collapse. In an instant, the magic power that belonged to a high magic was captured by her. She did not understand this kind of magic, but it did not prevent her from feeling the pressure of the high magic power. What powerful magic, incredible magic! Chris retracted her finger. She no longer looked at Achi with bewilderment in her eyes, but it was quickly filled with passion. Your Excellency Achi Lloyd's Truth, great magic shooter, please allow Chris to offer her highest respect to you. With that, she knelt on one knee and solemnly performed a rare etiquette. Even in the face of her savior, List, she had never performed such a pious etiquette. In the final analysis, whether it was a knight or a mage, they all worshipped the strong more. The magic shooter Achi was clearly far stronger than the Sky Knight, List. List was not jealous. If he came over on Leo now, he believed that Chris would also sincerely salute. But there was no need for that. He had always won the respect and loyalty of his subordinates by virtue of his charisma, not by virtue of unfathomable strength. Moreover, at this moment, it was Achi's time to perform, so how could he steal the show? Achi had too little contact with humans, but as intelligent as she was and as powerful as she was, she did not need to know too much about communication. She just said what she wanted to say. Chris, my brother asked you to cooperate with me to study magic. I have many experimental ideas that I need your help with. Chris was pleasantly surprised and said, it is my supreme honor to be able to serve the great magic shooter. Then she quietly added, if I can get 1 or 2 pointers from you, it will be even more exciting. Sure, you can study magic for me, and I will find time to guide you in your practice. Achi easily dealt with Chris. With her status, it was true that she only needed to crook her finger and a great mage would rush to work for her. The position of a magic shooter in the hearts of a mage was sacred and inviolable. Seeing this, List was pleased and said, Chris, Achi's identity needs to be kept secret and cannot be mentioned to anyone. Why, Lord Viscount, His Excellency Achilles is the embodiment of truth that walks in the secular world. Shouldn't he be spreading the light of truth to the world? If His Excellency Achilles needs a laboratory, Chris is willing to give up the Mage Tower and serve by his side. Wait a few years. She has just advanced to Magic Shooter, so she needs some time to adapt and not be disturbed by the secular world. List said unquestionably, you will still be in charge of the Mage Tower. After all, it was originally built for you. Achi will live in my castle, and her laboratory will be built directly in the castle. Achi did not speak and let List arrange it. Chris immediately said eagerly, then, Lord Viscount, can I have a room in the castle? I hope to be able to serve His Excellency Achilles at all times. Achi did indeed need a great mage as an assistant. According to many magic books, the ancient magic shooters were surrounded by a large number of mages, like the followers of a lord's knight. List thought for a moment and said, I can reserve a room for you in the castle, but your work will still be arranged in the Mage Tower. The team of mages there needs your leadership. Chapter 685. Chris had countless questions to ask Achi. But now was not a good time to communicate, because List had sent someone to call Paris, the head of the patrol group, to the Mage Tower. Today's main task was to solve the after-effects of the Black Dragon gang for Paris. My lord, Dean Chris. Paris was still dressed as a valiant mercenary, with leather armor, a big sword, and a ponytail. List introduced, this magician is Achi Royd's truth, she is my sister. Paris was slightly surprised, and then immediately greeted, greetings, Sir Achilles Royds. Her intuition told her that the relationship between this magician and List was unusual, but she was already a follower of List, and those ambiguous thoughts at the beginning had long been settled in the bottom of her heart. The wandering life when she was young made her cherish the hard-won life, so she was able to put herself in the right position. Achi looked at Paris curiously and did not speak. This was the first time she had seen a Black Dragon gang, and she wanted to take a closer look at what kind of state a human being was in after being infected by the magic of a dragon. But just from the surface, Paris was no different from a normal person. The three women were supposed to be a drama, but Achi did not like to talk, and the relationship between Chris and Paris was sloppy, so the atmosphere was more solemn. List did not like this atmosphere and went straight to the point. Paris, I called you here to solve your physical problems. Today in Chris' laboratory, Achi and I will work together to solve the magic erosion problem of the light dragon for you. You have to cooperate carefully. Ah, my lord, this is... Paris was surprised. Chris was also surprised. The magic erosion of the light dragon? Paris, your light magic affinity is caused by the magic erosion of the light dragon? Seeing this, List ordered, Captain Paris, tell them your story. Let Dean Chris know about it too. She can help from the side. Paris immediately told her story, how a mouse became a black dragon, how she escaped after killing the court magician, and how she followed her sister's trail to Flower Town. She was overwhelmed by List's personal charm and was willing to stay here with her sister. It turns out that the white dragon recorded in the magic books is true. The thief is really courageous. He actually reversed the transformation ritual and made you a living black dragon. Unfortunately, the thief is missing. Otherwise, the probability of curing will be much higher with one more sample. Paris still had the same attitude. Actually, it doesn't matter if I'm cured or not, my lord. Thank you for everything you've done for me. If it's too much trouble, this is actually quite good. It's not troublesome at all. You don't have to say any more. If you can live a few more years, why should you live less? List looked directly at Achi. What do you think we should do first? Let her transform into a black dragon first. Transforming into a black dragon will shorten her lifespan. If it was an ordinary magician, Paris would not listen to him no matter how much he said. But Liszt casually ordered, and she directly stirred up the light dragon magic in her body. To be precise, it should be the light dragon high magic, and the magic has the characteristics of an advanced nature. After taking off the hindering leather armor. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the clothes on Paris' body were torn apart. The veins on her originally white arms swelled, and grayish-white scales grew out of her flesh. Her arms were more than twice as thick, and her fingers turned into sharp claws, with sharp nails that were an inch long. After her arms, her legs and body followed suit, bursting her clothes. Her veins bulged everywhere, and scales grew in the muscles under her skin, making her body twice as big. Then even her head began to change. Fine gray-white scales grew on her face and forehead, and the color of her hair gradually turned gray-white. Apart from her face, there was no longer any trace of Paris's appearance. Her whole body was a huge half-dragon and half-human, with torn clothes hanging on her body. At first glance, she looked like the female mutant in X-Men, but she was gray-white and more ferocious. As soon as the transformation was completed, Paris's body became a looming transparent existence without the need for her to actively exert light and shadow. My lord, this is the final form of my black dragon gang. It takes a lot of magic to maintain this form. It seems that my body is melting. Keep the black dragon form, Paris. Don't worry. With the current strength of a Qi and I, it will not be difficult to solve the problem for you. Just trust me. Liszt quickly cast magic eyes and observed Paris, whose whole body was shrouded in a black mist. The black mist was the power left in her body by the light dragon. Strangely, the magic of the light dragon was not a group of sunlight, but a dark gray similar to the dark magic. I believe my lord. Paris's voice was rough, like two pieces of dry wood rubbing against each other. Chris was fascinated by the scene and muttered to herself, "It's really a black dragon. Is this the magic of the light dragon that distorts the light in the room and gives people an illusion?" She hadn't touched the magic network, so it was difficult for her to understand the special nature of high magic. In front of Paris, Liszt and a Qi were surrounding the 2-meter-tall black dragon, constantly peeping and discussing. "A Qi, do you have any clues? Brother can try to see if he can extract the high magic of the light dragon. With brother's strength, he should be able to do it." "No, I can't extract it by force. I saw that the high magic of the light dragon has been integrated with the cells of Paris's body. Once the high magic of the light dragon is extracted, Paris's body will collapse. Use the principle of resonance to extract it, so that the high magic of the light dragon is separated from the cells." A Qi knew what cells were. Liszt taught her in detail about biology in middle school. This can be tried. Liszt quickly held Paris's claws. "Paris, relax your body, don't try to resist my Do Qi." "Understood, my lord." The next moment, Liszt urged his own dragon Do Qi, constantly adjusting the frequency, trying to integrate with the light dragon magic in Paris's body, and then strip it away little by little. This kind of attempt is almost impossible for ordinary knight and magician, but the dragon knight broke the impossible. The dragon knight resonance can make a person and a dragon resonate, and now it is just a resonance of the high magic of the light dragon. After trying a few times, Liszt showed an imperceptible smile. "It's not a big problem." Then the dragon Do Qi surged violently. It drove the high magic of the light dragon in Paris's body to surge together, and it quickly reached the same frequency, began to resonate and fuse, and continued to boil and pull out. The principle is similar to the dragon knight resonance, but it is simpler to operate. It can barely be regarded as a lower version of the dragon knight resonance. "My body is hot," Paris said with difficulty. This is the dragon Do Qi burning her body. After all, Liszt's dragon Do Qi is of the fire attribute, with its own burning and burning nature. Even if it converges, it will still cause serious effects on Paris's body. "Bear it." Chapter 686. Holding Paris's hand and performing a simple dragon night resonance, he pulled out the light dragon high magic and took out a fire dragon needle from the gem space with his other hand. The fire dragon needle is a storage equipment made of volcanic glass, which can store the fire dragons while belonging to the supreme magic. However, Liszt has not used the fire dragon needle to store the magic belonging to the high magic. This time, he intends to experiment. After extracting Paris's light dragon high magic, can he put it into the fire dragon needle and slowly study it? After all, it is another elemental dragon's high magic. For mages such as Qi, it is definitely a material of great research value. It's so hot, Paris tried her best to endure the raging dragon's do qi in her body. To achieve the effect of dragon night resonance, it is necessary to use her body as the home field for delicate and violent operations. Fortunately, this process did not last too long. Liszt, who is familiar with the real dragon night resonance, has successfully merged his dragon's do qi with Paris's light dragon high magic, and then slowly extracted it from Paris's body by releasing the do qi. Along a sharp finger, it is guided into the fire dragon needle. Unfortunately, the fire dragon needle can stop the fire dragon high magic, but it can't stop the light dragon high magic. The light dragon high magic, which is integrated with the dragon's do qi, directly passed through the syringe of the fire dragon needle and dissipated in the air. Since it can't be stored, Liszt did not force it. He continued to guide and release. After about a quarter of an hour, he finally extracted all the light dragon high magic from Paris's body. Gradually, Paris's black dragon form began to fade. Her scales withered and her body shrunk. The slightly plump and valiant female mercenary had returned. However, because her clothes had been torn, a few strands of cloth could not cover her white female skin, and the two key points on her chest were clearly exposed to Liszt. However, before Liszt could shift his mind from the light dragon high magic and carefully look at Paris's body, Chris, who was guarding him, had taken off her magic cloak and covered Paris's body. Liszt saw this. He glanced at Chris faintly. What a blind guy. In any case, Paris's black dragon gang power has been completely solved. With the withdrawal of power, Paris, who had returned to her human body, slowly fell into Chris' arms. Lord Viscount, Commander Paris has used up all her energy. Will there be any problems? There shouldn't be any problems. Liszt loosened his hand and calmed the dragon-fighting energy in his body. However, her body has been eroded by the light dragon high demon for too long. The sudden separation will certainly cause a long period of weakness. She needs a large amount of nutrition to supplement her body's needs. At this time, Qi, who had been observing for a long time, gently held Paris's hand, sensing the condition of Paris's body. After a moment, she said, "Big brother, although Paris's body is weak and she can't feel the high magic of the light dragon, Qi can feel that the light magic is still in her body. Moreover, her body seems to be automatically refining the light magic. It's like fighting spirit, but also like magic." "You mean to say, she can now cultivate both do qi and magic?" Liszt was very surprised. Qi nodded. "In essence, magic and do qi are in conflict. Magic requires the spirit to be released, and do qi requires the spirit to be withdrawn. They are two different cultivation systems. But Paris's body has been specially transformed by the light dragon and has become similar to the body of World of Warcraft. Magic is natural. Can it be like this? Let me think for a moment." Liszt sat in a chair, thinking, but in fact calling the smoke mission. Mission completed. Reward, Paris's light magic swordsman path. Light magic swordsman path. He understood that Qi's guess was correct. The reward of the smoke mission for Paris's path of cultivation was indeed a system of magic and do qi cultivation. Probably only humans whose bodies have been completely transformed by the high magic of the dragon can absorb half of the magic in the air and half of the magic in their own cells like in World of Warcraft. Light magic swordsman sounds very cool. I wonder if I can let Leo mass produce some fire magic swordsman in the future? Or I can simply work as a fire magic swordsman myself. It won't hinder the Dragon Knight's cultivation. I can also learn some fire magic, which is also a wonderful experience. Between fantasy and fantasy. The smoke serpentines had changed. Mission: the formula for the potion to enhance the vitality of the little person has been sent to Cousin Meopal. It may play a role in the continuation of the Taro family's bloodline, but Marquis Merlin is an elder worthy of your respect. Perhaps you should find an opportunity to listen to his teachings. Reward: clues to the Wyvern Phoenix. Wyvern Phoenix? Does Super Dragon species World of Warcraft really exist? It seems that I have to go to Red Crab Island as soon as possible and see Marquis Merlin. List had long planned to see Marquis Merlin, but he had been busy and had not been able to get away. Now that the smoke mission had been urged, he had to find time to go to Red Crab Island. Blinking his eyes to disperse the smoke in front of him, List returned to his senses. Looking at Achi and Chris who were studying the unconscious Paris, he immediately said, "Study it and wait for Paris to wake up before letting her cooperate. For now, Chris, arrange for someone to take care of Paris and let her recover as soon as possible." Chris responded, "Yes, Lord Viscount." Achi said, "Brother, Achi wants to see Mary Dawn Daybreak and study the magic of storing objects with her. She had always been thinking about getting dressed." List naturally would not refuse. After a while, Mary rushed over. Now that she was a pure-blood vampire, her strength had increased a lot. Freed from the shackles of the Black Knight family, she did not have much work to do, and her life was very comfortable. Her main energy was now devoted to the development of the underworld. The population of Black Horse Island had exceeded 100,000, and there must be many talented teenagers who would be tempted by blood and want to become a vampire. Mary and the blood servants were looking for suitable teenagers. Of course, List had rules that forbade forced development of vampires, and they must get his approval before they could be transformed. And so far, Mary found 3 teenagers with blood magic aptitude, but List rejected them. 2 of them were new serfs and were not loyal enough. 1 was a magic apprentice valued by Chris, so he was not allowed to develop into a vampire. "My lord, what can I do for you?" "Come and meet my sister, Aroyd's Truth." "My lord's sister?" "Dear Lord Achilles, Mary Dawn Daybreak greets you." Mary immediately performed a noble etiquette. Achi nodded and said, "I want to study magic that can integrate objects into my body, and I need your help." Mary responded, "As you wish, Lord Achilles." "Then let's hurry up and study it." List interrupted, "Let's stroll around Black Horse Island today, Achi, it won't be too late to study it tomorrow." Achi was a little tangled, but it was hard for her to refuse List's proposal. "Okay then." List did not want Achi to indulge in the world of magic too much. After all, she was still a minor siren and should have a happy childhood. But he was not so polite to others. "Mary, you carefully sort out the magic of storing objects today, and when Achi needs it tomorrow, be sure to provide the most detailed data." Chapter 687. From east to west, from south to north. List took Achi on the Chocobo Loki and quickly strolled around Black Horse Island, admiring all the thriving towns, and the increasingly orderly plantations and workshops. This is white paper. At present, the quality is barely up to the standard for writing, but further improvement is needed. When the process is truly improved, it will be the era of white paper replacing thick bast paper. This technology will be an important pillar industry after the founding of the People's Republic. Achi rubbed the white paper. It's amazing that just some bark and straw can be made into paper that looks better than thick bast paper. Of course, magic is amazing, but technology is also a force that cannot be ignored. Well, my brother said a lot that once the power of steam is developed, it will change the whole world. List had talked about the Industrial Revolution. Watt's invention of the steam engine led to the Industrial Revolution of the 18th century. Of course, he said it in a speculative and perspective way. Leo is an elemental dragon and cannot produce gems and metals, so the development of industry with its supreme magic is the fastest way to realize its value. In fact, it was not the fastest way was to rob it and launch the development order, just like the Sapphire Grand Duke. If the impact of white paper was still relatively weak, it was more like a handicraft workshop. Then when visiting the glass workshop, she saw that under the burning of the fire dragon's supreme magic, the stone turned into a fire-like liquid, and then was taken out, extended, processed, and slowly cooled into different glassware. Qi felt a huge impact, and for the first time, she felt the powerful potential of industry. This is called an assembly line. If it is only the power of one person, the glass produced will be very limited. But if each worker masters one of the processes, not only can it speed up production efficiency, but it can also effectively reduce the risk of technology leakage. I have been promoting assembly line magic work in the Magic Academy based on this principle. My brother's idea is really amazing. Qi expressed shock. List replied easily, it's just basic operations. Apart from the glass workshop, which was slightly industrialized, the other workshops did not break away from the shadow of the original handicraft workshop. At most, List had higher requirements for hygiene and environment. Everything looked cleaner and tidier, but in essence, there was no change. What changed was the infrastructure. The roads were flat and wide, rubber roads, made of bricks mixed with rubber water. Tall water towers could be seen everywhere in the residential and workshop areas. These water towers were used for fire fighting and decontamination. They were used to flush the underground pipes regularly. Every house had a sewage pipe that was connected to the underground pipes of the city. Toilets were everywhere, strictly adhering to List's requirements to not urinate or defecate anywhere. Violators would not only be fined, but would also be reformed through labor. List also planned to promote the water wheel and the high bridge waterway. In other words, the water wheel would draw water from rivers and lakes and transport it through high-altitude pipes to the water tower in the town. However, the town was currently busy with construction and had not yet planned to this step. As long as the needs of the castle were met, the progress would not be slowed down. Just like the aristocratic lords did not care about the city's hygiene, they lived in the castle, and the stench did not affect them. List also lived in the castle. As long as the castle fully enjoyed healthy and convenient services, it did not matter if the city was backward. In fact, the town under his jurisdiction was already a model of civilization in the world, and its livability was similar to that of the great aristocratic castles. Many businessmen chose to buy houses in Flower Town. They could only buy houses in Flower Town. Black Horse Island had not yet been opened to settlement. Living in such a clean and hygienic environment, it was really difficult to go back to those dirty cities after getting used to it. Even many small aristocrats living in rural manors went to Flower Town to buy houses and enjoy the convenience of a modern town, with delicious food and rich drama. The port town, which was gradually developing into a city, was the focus of the visit. A barren land near Green Tea Town was also the focus of the visit. List pointed to the empty land and said to Qi, "It was here that Leo and I met the invisible dragon, a kind of sacred dragon. It ate my beef and smoked grass and gave me these space gems." List took out a space gem and handed it to Qi. "This space gem is for you, Qi. As a gift for your promotion to magic shooter, let me put it on for you." The space gem has been inlaid in the mithril ring made by the Iron Knight Alvin Eagle sword. It can be called a space ring, dazzling. Holding Qi's slender hand, List put the sparkling ring on her left middle finger under Qi's amazed and delighted eyes. "You can study it. Maybe one day I will ride the invisible dragon, and then I can have as many space gems as I want." Once upon a time, a space gem was like a priceless treasure, carefully collected by him, not daring to show it in front of others. He was reluctant to give it to anyone. However, after becoming a dragon knight, he no longer cared whether the space gem would be discovered or not. Moreover, he still had 2 enchanting dragon fruit. Sooner or later, he would ride the invisible dragon. At that time, space gems would become an important gem resource after his founding and trade with various countries. Compared with sapphires, rubies, and emeralds, the value of space gems was obviously greater. I have Leo and the invisible dragon. The fighting strength of these 2 dragons will protect my country. I believe that at that time, even without a kingdom as a backer, no one will dare to provoke me. It was normal for a kingdom to have 6 or 7 dragon knights, but the dragon knight would involve each other, and there were very few truly free dragon knights. The fall of a dragon knight would cause great turmoil in the country. Naturally, they would not dare to send a dragon knight to launch a war to slay a dragon. Before the establishment of the Sapphire Kingdom, the Eagle Kingdom had only sent 1 dragon knight to launch a war to slay a dragon. If they had sent 2 dragon knights, perhaps the Grand Duchy of Sapphire would not have had anything to do with it. Is this a space gem? It requires magic to stimulate it. It's amazing, it can actually have an independent space, as if it does not exist in this world, yet it is connected to this world. Brother is not only a dragon knight of the fire dragon, but also has friendly exchanges with the invisible dragon. Achi was very shocked, not only by the space gem, but also by List. Conquering a fire dragon was already an incredible existence. Now, List had obviously begun to conquer a second dragon, the invisible dragon of the sacred dragons. This almost made her lose herself in the worship of List. Facing the little siren's adoring eyes. Just like Achi was constantly adapting to the power of a magic shooter. Even Paris began to control her new body without the light dragon, attempting to recultivate. List directly let her try to dual cultivate chi and magic, walking the path of a light swordsman. Magic, you can only practice light magic. You can also only practice light do chi. Although the power of the light dragon has been expelled, your body has completed the transformation. You can only refine light do chi and absorb light magic. But this isn't a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. Sir, can I still cultivate to my previous strength? Yes. List gave an affirmative answer. The upper limit of your strength has increased significantly. I'm afraid your future can be more brilliant. Maybe you can become the first light swordsman who is both a great mage and a sky knight. When you succeed in surpassing yourself, I will give you a new surname. Paris asked with concern, what surname? Lightsaber, Paris Lightsaber. It was not uncommon to have a sword as a surname. For example, the only Iron Knight of Black Horse Island, Alvin Eagle Sword, was named after a sword. However, Paris's lightsaber sounded like a sword in her name, but in fact, it was named after her profession. Her profession was a new light swordsman. Paris Lightsaber. The former mercenary clenched the big sword in her hand, and for a moment, her fighting spirit rose again. Sir, I will definitely take the surname Lightsaber. I believe in you. List smiled. Such a smile was like a spring breeze. Paris could not help but fall into a momentary trance. Perhaps it was such a smile that pulled her heart back to the light from the darkness. Time passed by in a flash. There was only 1 day left before the celebration banquet for the Count's promotion to Marquis. The messenger knight of Tulip Castle rushed to Flower Town early and informed List, Sir Viscount, Sir Lord hopes that you can go to Flower Town today. Many guests have arrived at Tulip Castle, including your uncle's family. I see. If other guests came, List would have ignored them. Who cares if they were big or small nobles? In a few years, they would be people of 2 countries. There was no value in socializing, he was a person who was too lazy to socialize. He could be more aristocratic than any aristocrat, but there was still a heart in his body that wanted to break away from the noise. But when Masillo's family came, it would be unreasonable for him not to go. Soon, he set off for Flower Town, ready to have a good chat with his uncle's family. When he arrived at Tulip Castle, the already lively castle suddenly boiled up. All the nobles got up to greet him and waited at the gate of Tulip Castle to see the second strongest person in the Grand Duchy. Father Liszt, who was used to seeing such a scene, was not the least bit uneasy. He first saluted the oxtail marquis and then saw his uncle Masillo Longtaro. He saluted and greeted them again, "Uncle, Aunt, Meopel, Angela, welcome to Tulip Castle." Using his identity as a member of the Tulip family, he performed the aristocratic etiquette, expressing his intention to separate from the family. Perhaps it was very strange. Some lesser aristocrats separated from the family after obtaining a lesser sprite. However, Liszt, who was already famous in Sapphire, still did not separate from the family. However, no one raised any objections. "Liszt, you are even more graceful than when you were in the Eagle Kingdom." Masillo laughed heartily and patted Liszt on the shoulder with a gratified expression. His nephew had really made him proud. With such a relative, the Taro family had become more confident. Cousin Meopel was even more excited. "It has only been a long time since we last met, yet you have become a child of glory of Sapphire. This is too enviable." Little Princess Angela also said, "For Sapphire to have such a powerful knight like you is the glory of the country." Liszt responded with a smile. Following the introduction of the oxtail marquis, Liszt greeted other aristocrats that he knew or did not know. He was neither too arrogant nor too humble. He maintained a noble and distant gentlemanly demeanor. Even though he was a cut above others as a dragon knight, he still upheld the worldview that everyone was equal. He did not feel that there was any difference between aristocrats and commoners. He did not feel that aristocratic bloodlines were truly noble and that commoner bloodlines were inherently despicable. Giving commoners more meat could also give birth to a genius knight. His youngest follower, Emily, was a super genius born from a commoner. If one really wanted to haggle, these aristocrats were no different from lowly ants in front of his dragon knight identity. After a round of greetings, after receiving countless flattery, everyone finally returned to the castle's living room under the urging of the oxtail marquis. Liszt did not like crowded places, so he directly pulled Meopel to the oxtail marquis' study to chat. "Cousin, did you receive the formula I sent you?" "I received it and asked the great wizard to prepare it according to the formula. The potion should be ready by the time I return." Meopel said and then asked skeptically, Can the potion really promote the vitality of the midgets in my body? It should be true. Cyril would not dare to deceive me. Since he offered the potion formula to me, it shows that the formula is really effective. I hope it really works. Alas, I have been under too much pressure recently. Don't be nervous, relax. The more nervous you are about giving birth, the more likely it is that things will turn out contrary to your wishes. Take the potion and stick to eating the medicinal ingredients and food I sent you, and conceiving a child won't be too far away. Liszt comforted him and then asked, "How is grandfather's health?" So, sometimes good, sometimes bad. However, grandfather's mentality is very good. He believes that living one more day is one more day earned. He just misses you, as well as Levis and Levera. I also miss grandfather and have been preparing to find time to visit grandfather, but I have been delayed by other matters. After my father's celebration banquet is over, I will go with you to Red Crab Island. Chapter 689. At night. After declining Levis's proposal to go to Coral City to participate in some kind of party, Liszt and Meopel, in addition to chatting, also discussed piano skills in the Tulip Castle's piano room. Meopel really liked to play the piano. His skill was skillful, and the rhythm was smooth. Liszt's skill was far from Miopol's level, but he found another way to play his own, original, piano music. When he was in high spirits, the smoke mission also joined in the fun, making him recall two familiar melodies, Accompanying You, and San Son Swan. Together with the previously impersonated Für Elise, the Liszt piano music collection contained 3 classical piano pieces. However, he didn't know if it was because his strength had increased, but his mental strength had also increased. Subsequently, he recalled several piano melodies and composed several classical piano pieces. Therefore, it didn't matter if he didn't play the piano, but once he did, he would inevitably amaze everyone and cause a sensation that would cause countless girls to orgasm. However, he rarely played the piano in public. He had long since passed the stage where he wanted people to worship and be obsessed with him. He preferred to quietly enjoy life. Liszt, you are a genius through and through. Not only is your cultivation amazing, but even your piano playing is so terrifying. If you were interested in playing the piano, I'm afraid you would be the first piano master born in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Your talent in composition is enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with masters like Czerny. Playing the piano is just a small skill to cultivate one's mind. Miopol, there is no need to indulge in it. Liszt simply tapped a few keys, then turned around and no longer played. You should learn from me and put more time into cultivation. Strength is the standard that determines the status of an aristocrat. Alas, I am already 25 years old this year and have barely touched the shackles of an earth knight. If I want to break through, I'm afraid I'll have to wait until next year. Miopol's talent was pretty good. At least compared to Messiro, who had been forcibly turned into an ordinary sky knight, his talent was very strong. However, he was only a qualified successor to the Marquis. Sword Saint was probably his limit in the future. Compared to the genius Marquis Merlin, the descendants of the Taro family were a bit useless. Not only were their cultivation talents trash, but their fertility was also trash. Messiro and his wife had been plowing for many years, only to have Miopol as their only son. Miopol had spent more than a year making a dwarf, yet there was no sign of activity. Unlike the Tulip family, the Count had 3 sons. Now that the eldest son, Levis, had also given birth to a son, there was no need to worry about having children. If you don't have enough talent, then you'll have to work hard to make up for it. I'm afraid you're not as hardworking as Levis. Although the Taro family has provided you with more resources, it is very likely that you will be promoted to Sky Knight behind Levis, Liszt said in a somewhat old-fashioned manner. He also had the qualifications to guide the other party. Miopol was very good at comforting himself. In any case, you are already used to falling behind, so it doesn't matter if you fall behind Levis. I have a very young follower. Apart from eating, drinking, and sleeping every day, she spends all her time practicing cultivation. I suspect that she will promote to Sky Knight before you. Amazing, you already have a sacred swordsman follower. This time, you will have another Sky Knight follower. I still have 2 Sky Knight captives. If Alonso Cyclamen still does not pay the ransom, then I'm afraid that the 2 will also choose to pledge loyalty to me. Sky Knight captives, Alonso unexpectedly did not choose to pay the ransom. I also find it very strange. Liszt did not know what Alonso was up to. Was he so extravagant that he did not care about the Sky Knight followers? Was he delayed by something, or was he hatching some scheme? Even if Alonso was hatching some scheme, there was no need to care about it. There was still the Grand Duke ahead of him. After resting for a night in Tulip Castle, Liszt rode the Chocobo Loki early the next morning and returned to the Flower Town. Today was the celebration banquet for the promotion of the Earl of Coral Island to the Oxtail Marquis, so he needed to dress up and attend. He needed to bring his followers, retainers, and servants. He selected Clearwater Sword Saint Yevich Peanut, Iron Knight Alvin Eagle Sword, Port Town Consultant Gort Mast, and Black Horse Island Orders of Chivalry Commander Marcus Wheel from among his followers, and let these 4 followers follow him to Tulip Castle to attend the banquet. To support the Tulip family, Sacred Swordsman, Iron Knight, were excellent signboards to decorate the facade. By the way, he brought along his youngest follower, Amelie, so that she could see the world as a retainer knight and relax at the same time. It was not a reasonable way to practice every day. Amelie did not want to rest, so he could only take her out to rest and relax. In addition, Liszt also brought along Achi, who was dressed as a noble lady. Now that Achi had been announced as his sister, it was time to let his family know Achi and shock the Oxtail Marquis. Unknowingly, Liszt had developed this bad taste. He was used to making some big news and enjoying the shock of the Oxtail Marquis. The expression of trying to hide it was very interesting. It was probably revenge for the other party always urging him to update Liszt's Handbook of the Sky, making him lose his interest in writing. "Brother, Achi doesn't want to attend the banquet, this dress is so uncomfortable." Achi was more attractive than any noble lady. A pure face paired with a gorgeous dress, smooth skin and petite figure, as well as a young and inexperienced demeanor, would definitely make all the noble ladies feel ashamed of their inferiority. Bringing Achi to the banquet was very likely to shield Liszt from the vicious gazes of those female nobles. Liszt could imagine how many aristocratic young ladies would be aiming at him at this banquet, as if they were hunting. After all, he was such an outstanding person. This is the life of humans, Achi. Learn to endure it first, and then you will know how to enjoy it. Liszt tidied up his laugh-pleated collar. "I didn't like frac à brire before, and thought it was a dress that a fool came up with to torture himself. But after getting used to it, it still feels very uncomfortable." The aristocratic dress of frac à brire was cumbersome, strange, and uncomfortable to wear. Perhaps it was this oddity that made it a symbol of nobility. The more cumbersome it was, the more orderly it was, and the stranger it was, the more outstanding it was. It symbolized aristocratic etiquette and nobility, which was completely different from the ordinary clothes of commoners. This was the biggest characteristic. But Liszt did not like it, very much. "After I establish the country, the first thing I will reform is the dress. The dress must be simple and convenient, and on this basis can reflect the demeanor of nobility as much as possible." He flipped over and mounted the bird. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.